Save it for the air, they say. There's a nice little debate there. Rise and shine, everybody. Good Monday morning. It is cold. It is really, really cold outside. But you already know that if you are
thawed
paying
yet?
attention. Yeah, I've thawed out. But it's cold. It's cold. Got out of the car, it was 4. From my garage to the radio station, we went from 62 to 4. That's pretty quick.
Oh,
that sounds like a score back in the 90s for Nebraska football.
Your garage is at 62?
They gave up 4?
Yeah.
That's kind of like hot. Like that's kind of impressive a little bit. Like my house is at like 67.
Wait till the
68.
summer when you hear about his place.
That's something.
Really? I guess I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I guess
60,
I never looked
62.
until this morning, but I came out of I came down the stairs into the garage and I just
Am I
heard the
wrong?
news.
I feel like that's kind of 62 is kind of, especially with how cold it is outside. 62
Yeah,
is
but
kind
it's
of
a good
impressive.
garage. It's a good solid
I was going to
garage.
say, it
It's
must
got
be
a
a
good
good
foundation.
garage.
It sounds like a great garage.
Yeah.
It sounds like I want to park my car in that garage.
I've never thought about that before.
Matt
Yeah,
doesn't
no.
have remote start.
I don't have remote start.
So this
It's-
is kind of
it's
So you
terrible.
don't own a vehicle that has an app on your phone. You just
Nope.
click, hold, start. We'll
Nope.
send you a notification when your car starts, and then it comes back and goes, your car is currently at 72. It'll be running for the next 15 minutes.
My car
Oh, thank you. I'll be
My
right out
car
at 14.
almost didn't turn on today, which is a testament to how cold it is.
Wait till
because my
tomorrow.
car is a beast and is reliable.
Yeah.
But it's circa 2016. So I don't like you
Wasn't
would
that
have to
long
get the
ago.
premium to like get the remote
You
start.
do you own jumper cables?
No.
You probably should invest in some jumper cables.
Target this afternoon. Get there.
I am going to Target today.
There you
and
go.
I actually do think I should buy some jumper
Probably
cables.
should.
Look at that. You two. Uncle Gary and Uncle Jimmy helping out.
Oh, Christ.
I bought a
think
drill,
officially
too, a
crossed the
week ago.
threshold.
We've made it through another weekend without one of those late night calls.
I bought a vacuum. I put together a vacuum
All
yesterday.
right.
It was wireless. It was great.
Yeah.
I have a drill now. I have tools. I have a screwdriver. I have a tape measure. Do you know how much I've been using? I've never used a tape measure more in my entire life than
Now-
the last 3 weeks.
Now, did you just buy it to buy it, or did you need it?
the drill?
No, the tape measure.
Yeah.
No, we need it. We needed it because
I'm
we
sure.
were going to NFM and we needed to know that the dimensions of the couch we were going to buy were going to be able to fit through our door.
Oh, the couch.
And so I bought a tape measure and we measured it out and we put it on our phone and then we were running around NFM measuring all these couches and then an old lady came up and goes, "Hey, can I use your tape measure?" I go, "Absolutely,
Wow.
you can." So
No,
I gave
really?
it to her and she measured out her thing. Yeah.
That's Nebraska nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like
I'm
some
a
Mrs.
Midwestern
Robinson
man.
stuff.
Did she give it back?
Yeah.
Or she swipe it like a pen?
No, I measured it. I measured it for her. Like I got down and I no,
what was she
seriously.
buying?
It was this like big, it was like this chair, right?
Yeah.
But it was almost as if it was like the connector to a sofa, you know, those long, like that long piece
Yeah.
to a sofa,
Yeah.
but it was its own individual chair. It was like a chair bed. It was awesome. I sat
Did she
down. in it.
look like she needed that?
No, I think she was buying it for someone else.
Oh,
Did
for
she
sure,
look
kind of
wealthy?
Because that chair was bigger than her. It was larger
All right.
than her.
All right.
Chair.
But yeah, there you
All
go.
right. There's your deed of the weekend.
Mhm.
There you go.
Happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody.
Yes.
We may
Yeah.
have all come over on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. It also, for one of the rare times, Martin Luther King Day and the inauguration happens on the same day. So Washington, D.C. will be a very busy place.
They moved it indoors. They couldn't get a roof to cover DC.
No.
They don't have a dome.
Couldn't go to RFK.
White House doesn't have a dome.
I just want to, for somebody back in the previous election cycle, remember when President Trump came and had the rally out at Epley and it was outdoors? A little cold. People had some issues. I don't have a problem with them moving into the Capitol Rotunda.
I know.
I mean, they're being smart. I mean,
Maybe they
hey.
I don't know, maybe they build a new White House, move it to Arlington Heights.
Hey,
There
know?
you go.
let's just say this.
With a moat.
People that root for their favorite football team are tougher than people that root for their favorite president. Now, you might have the same interest,
Sure.
but football fan tougher than
Political fan.
political fan.
That's
We
a
already
great, as the
knew
kids
that
call
though.
it.
That's not like a public service
No,
announcement.
some people will tell you that political fan is much tougher than a sports fan. Try telling that to people in Detroit and Baltimore
I was
today
about to
after
say.
this weekend. But welcome in, everybody. Off and running, 4th and Monday. We had this discussion towards the tail end of the show on Friday with the football at hand. And remember, we have a football game tonight. And
Yes,
let's
we
be
do.
sad for a little bit
Many people forget.
because we only have 4 major football games left until August. Only 4. Tonight, next weekend, and then
Why did you say that?
the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. because I just want people to know
But you
to
didn't-
embrace
but I
every
didn't
single minute
even-
of football.
But I wasn't even thinking about that. I didn't even think that
You were
the,
thinking
like-
about how you're going to use your tape measure. I'm trying to
I know.
help you along here.
Indeed. Not
Um,
today, though.
I
You
already
don't want to
used
do
the
that.
tape
But-
measure in that way.
But the 4 football games that were played this weekend, I have no idea what that means. And I can keep it moving.
Right. Football.
And then you add tonight
Snow.
Notre Dame and Ohio State. We might have to rethink the little debate we had about the best football weekend of the year.
Ooh.
Oh,
Now, I don't know
gotcha.
that it was necessarily the best games, but in terms of the NFL has a grip on us that we cannot get away from. The
That's pretty
best football weekend is the divisional round, or I like to think it's the championship Sunday.
I think it's dependent on the matchups,
Yeah.
dependent on the games,
That wasn't the
dependent on the
question.
season.
That wasn't the question.
No, I answered it.
I have to take some executive action on
You
your
no,
response
you said
there.
what's the better football weekend? My answer
Yeah.
is it's dependent
Yeah.
on the season. I think this weekend will probably end up being better than next weekend, if I had to guess. I
Yeah.
think in previous years when there's been a little bit more competition, a little bit more
Mhm.
parity, some hotter 9-7 teams, some hotter 10-6 teams, maybe it's
Yeah.
it's this weekend. Or sorry, when it's the next weekend. Or if there's less parity and
Got
there's
a chance to be
clearly-
a banger of an upcoming weekend.
Like last year,
Yeah.
it was for sure the NFC AFC championship games were more exciting weekends than the divisional weekends because
Mm-hmm.
you kind of knew the
Oh,
entire way it was going to be Kansas City and Detroit and San Francisco
Yep.
and Baltimore. You knew that those, even before the playoffs began, those were the 4 best teams.
Even before
This
the season
weekend,
began.
You kind of knew Detroit's a little banged up. Washington's hot with Jaden Daniels. You knew that Kansas City was going to win. Baltimore,
What'd you
and
say?
you
They're-
knew
they're-
that
they're gonna
Kansas
win.
City was going to win.
Super Bowl is not inevitable because we're playing America's team.
It is. They've become America's team now. I think most
I am
people
here-
are Buffalo fans.
I am here all week for y'all because if you want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm here to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if you guys know this. People have doubted us for the longest time. They have doubted us. Doubted us. Nobody said that you could get to the AFC Championship game and host 6 of the last 7 years. But this is the challenge that is unlike any other because this is Chiefs Nation against America because everybody wants America to win except for those of us that root for the Kansas City Chiefs. As you can see, I'm on defense all week.
Hey,
You got me
long.
intrigued.
Hey,
with
look at me.
your tease.
I'm in the trenches with you.
All
All right. I need that Patty Mahomes ball to go up in
Hey,
value.
hey.
I need 3 Super Bowls in a row.
I just want to get this out of the way to start with, okay? I love debating sports with people, but once I go facts, you go emotion, and once you go emotion, I ask for your first kin, okay? Because where do I send your body when I'm going to wrap you up in a body bag if you're going to go just straight on emotion? And I was not a Patriots fan. I watched it from afar. I probably got triggered at the Patriots like people get triggered at my Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, I said my Kansas City Chiefs
It's all right. Own them.
because I have a rewards account that got a little bump over the weekend.
Also, you
Um,
supported them when they were really bad.
So I have to go back into the Rolodex of the thing upstairs. Did the Patriots drive NFL fans bat blank crazy as much as the Chiefs do? The Chiefs are living rent free in people's heads.
So
Did the Patriots do this as much?
I don't
here's-
think
here's-
so.
No,
They
and I'll
did,
I'll
but they
tell you-
didn't.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I think it's more so a Kansas City thing than it was a New England thing. Because after Brady retired, people went from hating Brady to appreciating his greatness. And it's
Mhm.
almost as if when Brady was done playing,
Yeah.
he got a lot of fans and he had a lot of people being like, he's the greatest of all time. And almost people had like a pride in the fact that they were alive and they watched him at his peak and they watched him played, right? So now that he's gone, it's almost as people who hated the Patriots are now gatekeeping Brady being the greatest of all time.
Ooh.
And they're hating on Mahomes because of it, because they don't want Mahomes to go down as the GOAT. There are a lot more Mahomes haters than I think there were.
Why would you be a
Patriots
Mahomes
hater.
hater? Now,
Because
I
I
will
just-
say, the flopping crap, we ain't doing that, okay? 15, we ain't doing that. That was not good, okay? The flopping crap that he tried to pull, that's beneath you, okay? I hate that. I don't care if it's my team or somebody else. I hate flopping.
Wasn't great.
Continue on.
Fair.
But no, I just think that people now have a pride in Brady because they're like, oh, I watch him, I see him play, he's the greatest of all time. It's almost like Jordan. Like you couldn't have been a Bulls fan in the 90s.
I like that connection because the Chiefs do get officiated like Jordan in the 90s.
A little bit.
No, not a little bit. I admit this, okay?
Yeah.
I admit that the Kansas City gets calls. Okay? I am fully on board that Kansas City gets calls. Now, I think the NFL will overcorrect this upcoming weekend because there's a lot of chatter about it. Just look at yesterday.
Yeah.
From Saturday's games to yesterday, there was an overcorrection, and then they just let things go.
They don't play football.
So I can admit Kansas City gets calls. I hope you all with your sports teams get to that level where you get calls. Kansas City gets the calls that Jordan gets in the 90s. Here's what I have a problem with. There is no plan by the NFL to help the Kansas City Chiefs. Because if you want to get into a factual thing, I got all the penalty yard numbers. Okay? I can do that with you. I can do that all day with you. All right, continue on. Thank you.
No, you're right. You're right.
Boxing
You're
gloves
there.
are on all
You're
week.
there. You're
this
on
downtrodden
guard.
Bills team, they've never done anything. OJ in the backfield. America's teams coming to Arrowhead.
I do think that there is and also too, there is a difference between Brady and Mahomes and the fact that like Brady never had like the brother or the teammate with the really famous girlfriend or the wife always on the camera and spraying champagne into the
I can't remember who Troy Brown
stands and the three kids with weird names. Like there's a lot of publicity over Pat Mahomes that I think he gets an unwarranted negativity around. And so I think that leads to people hating the Chiefs.
There's Chiefs fatigue.
There is.
Okay, there's absolutely Chiefs fatigue. You know what? Here's the thing that's the difference between the Patriots and the Chiefs. The Patriots had Deflategate. The Chiefs don't have a Deflategate. Okay,
so you forgot Spygate, by the way, too.
So you got to go find, oh, my God, the Patriots cheated, but the NFL helps the Chiefs cheat. Okay, I understand those storylines, okay? I just said, I admit Kansas City gets calls, but there is no plan. Okay, there's absolutely no plan for Kansas City to be beneficial. And I'll give you an example, and then I'm going to stop with this. Was there not an egregious call in the game after Houston, Kansas City that involved the Detroit Lions and that really changed that game with a face mask?
Yeah. Yes, where he was grabbing the shoulder.
That was worse than anything that happened in the Chiefs game.
Absolutely.
Why is that not being talked about? Is that because the Lions lost and the Chiefs won? Okay.
Yes.
All right, just checking. Just checking. I'm not trying to be, what do they call it, petty? No, I'm not trying to be petty at all.
No, it's a good point. But if the Lions had won, we definitely would have. The Commanders fans would have been in an upheaval.
Nobody's talking about that call. That call was worse than anything in the Chiefs game.
I honestly forgot about that call.
New Orleans Saints fans are still waiting for that pass interference to be overturned from
I love when Rams fans complain because the Saints jump in their mention.
Exactly.
The NFL has this grip on us. But this was a weekend, good sports weekend, lots going on. This was the sports weekend, not only with the 4 football games, but also about the basketball that was played by Blue and Red. This was don't screw it up. Like if you look at, I think more games are lost than won.
Yeah.
But this weekend, whether it be in Storrs, Connecticut or College Park, Maryland, or the 4 sites of the divisional round games, it was just don't screw it up. And yesterday was kind of turnover Sunday.
Dude.
And you could say turnover Saturday because of the Lions and then the Ravens. But this weekend, don't screw it up. And if you didn't screw it up and you found a way to finish, you're like getting up on Monday going, we're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler. You familiar with Sizzler?
No.
I've been to Sizzler.
Dang.
It was good.
I went to the old market on Saturday. On Saturday.
Can I just pause you for a moment?
Go ahead.
Sizzler and the old market.
Not the same.
Yeah, not the same.
No, I know. But I just thought you're just bringing up something that I didn't know. And then
But our boy's exploring his new city.
In this town, you would not find Sizzler in Old Market.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you brought up something.
We're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler.
I didn't know. What is Sizzler? It's a restaurant, I'm assuming.
It might be one of the greatest steakhouses you would ever go to. But you know what? It's weird in this country. Sometimes those steakhouses don't last.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we?
You could get a nice baked potato.
Lori's.
It was a nice Midwest staple. Oh, it's right up there with Ruth Chris.
Yeah.
If Sizzler would have lasted today, I know there is. If Sizzler would have lasted today, it'd be right there with Ruth Chris, which is coming to Omaha.
You would know.
Ruth Chris coming to Omaha?
Ruth Chris is, I think, am I supposed to say that? Ruth Chris is coming to Omaha.
Ruth Chris,
you said it a while back.
Did I say it about a while back?
You ever go to the Ruth Chris in Madison? It's incredible.
Do you see what I make? I make minimum wage.
Okay, so don't screw it up. Great weekend of sports. I was talking about this with my buddy, and this is like the beauty of sports. The beauty of sports is that you can play a game for whether it be 40 minutes, whether it be 60 minutes, however long the game is. You can be in the trenches. You can go back and forth for minutes and minutes, play after play, sequence after sequence. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the last 40 seconds, or it comes down to one play, or it comes down to one moment. And we saw all weekend long, if you were the winner in that one moment, you were the winner of the game. And I think that's why that's the thrillingness of sport. Now, for Nebraska basketball fans, unfortunately, you were on the wrong side of that. If you're a Creighton basketball fan, you're pretty happy about it. If you are a Philadelphia Eagle fan, which, by the way, the Eagles have done that all year long, where they're winning games and they're controlling games, and then all of a sudden it just goes in the air because they start playing Swiss cheese prevent defense, which, by the way, prevent defense is the stupidest thing
It prevents you from winning.
Heard. Like, I know that it's a deal. Teams play prevent defense. Oh, we're up by a lot. We're just not going to let them get into the end zone. But, like, you give them momentum. Why would you actively give a team momentum and, like, let them gain yards down the field and see the ball go through the hoop? And then you're standing, you're going to, all right, we're going to put our 2 feet on the goal line. And then what happens when they score? Now they're within one score and they got all the momentum.
I believe that you are referencing the Bears-Commanders game, which, do you realize that when that game was played, Chicago was 4-2 and Washington was 5-2, and Washington's playing this weekend?
You think I didn't realize that?
Okay. I was just checking.
You didn't think I was there. I was working at the Bears Network when it happened. What do you mean I didn't realize that?
Hey, I'm with you.
We'd be 5-2, and we would have probably made the playoffs.
Well, now you're going to interview George Halas today, I believe.
All right.
It is so embarrassing. It is so embarrassing. We fired our coach early, and we still are interviewing candidates.
Hey, he might have a job before the Bears fill their opening. But this is a big week for a BJ because Ben Johnson now will be able to navigate the situation.
Do you think that defensive performance hurt Aaron Glenn's head coaching search?
No, I don't think so. I think he's in line to be the Jets head coach. There's a lot in this weekend. And especially with the Lions and the Ravens, because, you look and you go, man, this is supposed to be our year.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be our year. And especially with the Lions. Now, the advantage of the Lions is they have a really good general manager. Brad Holmes is really good. And that roster, attrition caught up to the Lions.
When they're healthy.
And the turnovers, and maybe Jared Goff scratching the ceiling in a big game. And that game turned into a track meet. And I don't think they could have played that kind of game. But I don't think the Lions are going to go away, but when you say this is their best opportunity, they might lose both their coordinators, who are highly sought after. On Baltimore's side, it's one of those years again where Kansas City looks somewhat vulnerable. Lamar's having a big year. You went out and you got Derrick Henry, but you come up short, and once again in a big game, the Lamar Jackson conversation is fascinating to me because one quarterback is a win away from going to the Super Bowl that played last night. The other is about 17 days away from getting another MVP trophy. But Lamar in the postseason is 3-5. I know it's not a quarterback stat, but in those 8 games, look at all the turnovers. And then you also have to factor in his head coach. What do they have? Harbaugh has 3 wins in the postseason in the last decade. Has a Super Bowl on the resume. But who is more devastated in the fandom? Detroit, who, again, great last 2 years, but only one playoff win for Detroit in the last 2 years. And then Baltimore.
Are we so
it's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
You go one playoff win in the last 2 years for Detroit, and I understand where you're coming from, but they got buys in that. Like they would have won a wild card game. They would have had a playoff win if they weren't the number 1
seed. They were
seed,
a big favorite on Saturday night.
Good point. Who's more devastated? I think it would have to be Baltimore. And the reason why is because at least when you look at this Detroit roster, you have most of these guys are coming back. You have the core of guys coming back. Laporta's coming back. St. Brown's coming back. Gibbs is coming back. Montgomery's coming back. Goff.
And they'll be healthy.
Hutchinson.
They'll be healthy.
They're Anzalone. Like, they are going to have Terry and Arnold, Brian Branch. Like, these are all dudes who are
They'll be the hot pick to win it next year.
All going to be back. And sure, like, they're learning Detroit fans are learning what it's like to be a consistent good NFL franchise. Like, hey, you're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have attrition. You're going to lose to teams that, you know what, it's just their year. Or maybe, hey, it was just their game. It was just the Commanders' game. They were hot. Jaden Daniels, we'll have a conversation about that later, but is having the greatest rookie season ever. And probably in at least quarterback history. So with the Ravens, though, I think it's more devastating because they're farther down the line. They're farther down the line. They've been doing this a while. They've been winning the games. They've been going to the playoffs. They have had their golden moments, their opportunities to win. And what does it come down to? A Zay Flowers fumble at the 1 yard line last year. And then now
there was that pass in the middle of the end zone that also happened.
Yeah. But,
well, this
Lamar fumbles. Andrews drops the 2-point conversion. Lamar has thrown 4 interceptions all year. Throws a terrible interception on the second possession of the game. It's got to be antagonizing.
Well,
to be a Ravens fan.
From the Baltimore perspective, that game came down to 3 turnovers and 2 2-point failed conversions.
Yes,
they didn't punt the entire game.
Wow,
and they lost in Buffalo. That's what stings. Mark Andrews, though. Man, you got to show up for the post game. You got to show up for the post game.
So,
you have to talk to the media after a game like that.
Take your medicine.
What team do you think Mark Andrews ends up on next year?
No,
CBS,
no,
NBC,
I'm not doing
ESPN, or Fox?
He's a good player. He had a bad game, and that's going to haunt him for a long time. But he's a good player.
He's
I'd
great.
take him right now.
Yeah, but just the 2 biggest moments he had. Well, 3 because he had a drop early. He had the fumble, which was a great play by Bernard.
Great play.
And then, the 2-point conversion. Could Lamar have thrown the pass a little bit better? But Mark Andrews is one of the better tight ends in the NFL. At that moment, you got to catch that as you fall into the end zone and send us into overtime.
And cash Matt's bet.
And I'd call it all over again. Let him redeem himself.
I had Ravens over 26.5.
Well,
wait, are we not on a heater anymore?
No, we're off the heater because Andrews dropped the ball.
Hey, I can't tell you what he said about Mark Andrews in a text because you can't use that word on air. See, look at you got emotion.
Gosh darn.
Take out emotion. Let's just
what
go
do you
with
mean take out emotion?
Scum,
the fact is he dropped the ball and I lost my bet. That's the fact. That's the fact of the matter. I'm a loser because Mark Andrews dropped the ball.
I think you're a little bit harsh on yourself.
Wow.
No,
I like you.
I've been on a great heater.
We all like you.
Been on a great heater here. But no,
you were probably were you an idiot that chased 9.5 for Houston, Kansas City?
No, I did not bet that game.
People said that's a bad beat. You know what?
That's hilarious.
That's a bad gambler that you chased 9.5 in that game.
So
that was smart football by Andy.
Let's go back to the Baltimore conversation. What I think is more frustrating for Baltimore than Detroit is the fact that Baltimore, when you look at the landscape, because it's all about, I think football is less about winning the Super Bowl and more about winning the NFC or the AFC. How do we get there? Not necessarily about we got to win the Super Bowl. It's like get to the Super Bowl. It's so hard to get to the Super Bowl. So how do we get there? And if you're Baltimore, you're looking at the landscape of the AFC and you're like, man, Kansas City's a wagon. Buffalo is supposed. By the way, Buffalo's supposed to be in a down year. Buffalo, after trading Stephon Diggs and losing pieces on defense, they're supposed to not be good this year. And now they are in the AFC Championship game. And then you're looking at what Cincinnati's got Joe Burrow. They're always going to be somewhat competitive. They're always going to be somewhat
The NFL,
feisty.
though, is a ring society. We judge guys on rings.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying.
winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, no.
Important.
But I'm talking about
going
into a season team perspective. I'm not saying that getting to the
pardoning everybody this morning. Continue on.
I'm not saying that getting to the Super Bowl is as prestigious as winning the Super Bowl. I'm just saying when you're looking at the season, week 1, your vision should be how do we get there? Not because winning it is so far out and it's one game and you're playing a team that you haven't paid attention to probably a lot of the year because they're on the other side of the league, right? How do we get there? Baltimore has so much more of a difficult path to get to the Super Bowl year in and year out than Detroit, because Detroit is still sitting at home and being like, okay, we lost to the Commanders. But when the betting odds come out for next season to win the NFC, Detroit's probably going to be the favorite because they still have an incredibly talented roster. And when healthy, they were kicking teams' butts And then they didn't, and then they got hurt.
Thank you, Dan Campbell, for being human.
Oh, my God.
Boy, what a
love
different
that guy.
reaction from Dan Campbell to D'Amico Ryans.
Or Mick Cronin.
Maybe Houston can learn something from Dan Campbell, but I worry about Dan Campbell, who he said it was my fault. He had the emotional moment. I think we're past can the man coach or not. He can coach. He can motivate. He's got a great GM. They got a really good roster that just needs to stay healthy. But after this season, I think it's fair to wonder if Dan Campbell will ever be the same. Because, man, you saw a guy that in that moment, Saturday night, you've never seen that kind of vulnerability out of a guy that, bites kneecaps and is tough.
Just drained.
Yeah, but again, there were don't screw it up weekend. They turned the ball over. The quarterback turned the ball over. Baltimore's quarterback turned the ball over. Look at Houston. Houston was god-awful in special teams, okay? And they couldn't protect C.J. Stroud.
No.
Then look at yesterday. I mean, don't screw it up. Finally, the Eagles said, what is our identity? Oh, let's find 26 in the backfield and not because Kellen Moore had a bad day yesterday.
He's all ready for the job.
Oh, the Giants and the Cowboys caught a lot of strays yesterday. But you already have a quarterback that's on a bad wheel. So why not, when you're near your own end zone, have him drop back into the end zone? Finally, don't screw it up. Do what you do best. Philadelphia said, oh, you know what? We got this mammoth offensive line that's really good. I love the Eagles and the Bills offensive line, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's have 26 run behind him. Oh, okay.
Well,
don't screw it up weekend.
Also, too, after the Rams scored, so to make it 22-28, what does he do? They go 3 and out, and on the second down play, he has Hurts roll left, try and throw it to the short side of the field. Everybody's covered. He goes down, he takes the sack, and then they end up having to punt. That was an awful play call. After, by the way, Saquon literally 3 plays before that ran for a 60-yard touchdown. Like, why not just give him the ball 3 times?
You're getting the ball 3 times.
They got a little banged up, though. Hurts has a little knee thing. I know he's going to play, but that still might affect him. And then Saquon took a nasty hit to the hand.
Philadelphia has not been clicking on all cylinders for a while. And
yet they're still winning.
They are still winning. I mean, people said that about Kansas City. You know what the difference is? Kansas City is very businesslike. Kansas City expects to win. You look at their post game when Andy Reid comes in. How about those Chiefs? They are very businesslike. I mean, that's what they are. They expect to win. They know how to win. They don't care what it looks like at the end of the game. When the scoreboard has the score, they're the winning team. That's when you cross that threshold and you're to that level, man, you're cooking with some peanut oil. I can't wait for this upcoming weekend. We got lots to discuss on a busy sports weekend. We do have the college football national championship game tonight. Are you going with head and heart in your pick?
We'll talk about it. Because I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of thinking.
I mean, Ohio State's defense is pretty good. I don't know if you want to go there.
No.
Okay.
I'm just going
to help you.
I was scrolling on Instagram and someone who has a podcast literally said that they don't think Notre Dame's going to score a point. And I'm like, oh, brother, I don't know if I'd do that if I were you.
We'll get into that and much more. Coming up a little bit later, Evan Bland stops by. Jacob Bigelow with his thoughts on some hoops.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Why?
Always
fun.
I love Jacob.
It'll be fun.
Of the 4 games that Nebraska basketball has lost in a row, I'm not doom scroller. I got my TikTok back. I'm not doom scroller with Nebraska basketball after yesterday.
That had to be a stressful.
Are you buying stock?
Well, I didn't say I was buying stock.
Okay, no, I didn't say you said it. I just asked if you were.
Gloom. I am not on the bandwagon of Fire Fred, which became
trending
yesterday until it started snowing in the Eagles-Rams game and people went on to something else.
Who is this Fred?
Oh, there's some Fire Fred talk out there.
Fred Smoot?
Yeah.
Didn't he come into Barstool?
Yeah, he just signed.
You going to talk about the boat?
He talks about a lot. Smoot talks.
Did we ever get a clarification on what exactly happened on the boat?
I don't think we did.
Derailed the Vikings. Haven't been the same since. Take that as a lesson. You go up to Okoboji this summer in that party boat. Make sure you pick the right people.
I like Okoboji.
Yeah. All right, 36 past the hour. The lineup brought to you by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. Gary and Matt, Jimmy here as well on a Monday. I know a lot of you are off from school, maybe work, but know the cause and know why you're off today. Martin Luther King Day. Let's make a difference today. With a lot going on. Lots going on. We're here for you. You can always join the party. 402-951-1620. You have an open invitation. You can walk right past the velvet ropes. We'll give you some bottle service as well to help your Monday get off and rolling. You can always email us into the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Gary at 1620thezone.com, Matt at 1620thezone.com, or on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620.
At Matt McMedia, MattMcMedia. TikTok.
Good Monday
TikTok.
morning. We're back with more after this.
TikTok.
How now, brown cow? Yeah, some things don't need to be read aloud.
No.
You got to read ahead.
Yeah.
It's like emails we get from listeners. You got to read ahead so you don't just,
And if you do read it, do it in a Morgan Freeman voice.
Ron Burgundy.
Ooh.
Anything goes.
You had a Ron Burgundy tweet the other day.
Yes, I did.
Quite a big deal.
Yes,
I have a lot of leather-bound books and smell of rich mahogany.
Have you seen Anchorman?
Saturday was a good day for you.
All right. Well, I just have to check because I don't want to go into a deep discussion about Anchorman, and you'll be like, "Did they really have a double on the Blood Boat there with the Vikings?"
You know that? Do you know that
Impressive.
that Mexican restaurant that they eat at where he does the impromptu flute?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know? So the name of that restaurant. Do you know what the name actually is in Spanish? It's my mom, who's Cuban, like thought it was so
Shut
funny
up,
because
Mom.
no one else realized it. The name of the restaurant is "We Spit in Your Food," but it's in Spanish. But it's like one of those like
Good catch.
it's one of those jokes that like no one gets because unless you
Yeah.
speak Spanish. And so when we were watching Anchorman, she started laughing out of nowhere when they showed the sign. She was like, "That literally is 'We Spit in Your Food.'" It's a little fun fact for you.
I did too.
I
But that
think-
might have been the insane amount of pot I had when I watched that movie.
Excuse me?
It's 2004. It was a different time. That was fun.
Sorry.
Wasn't
Sorry, I
legal.
almost
Wasn't
choked-
wasn't
almost
legal
choked on
back
my-
then.
Yeah,
It
no.
wasn't? Damn.
Yeah.
No.
People
You
in
said
Lawrence
you
had me
said it was
confused.
2004 was a different time, as if we've banned it and you could get away with it. If anything, it's been the opposite.
Well, it was a different time for me.
Well, you're much better for it 20 plus years later.
Yeah, I was 2 years old. It was a very different time. for me.
Let's start because we do after this 4-game losing streak for Nebraska basketball as they lost at Maryland, now to drop 12-6, 2-5 in the league. And you like a little bubblicious? Nebraska USC Wednesday night at PBA is bubblicious. This is from Zach.
Oh, here we go. Here we go, Jim.
It's true.
Nebraska basketball equals absolute garbage program. No excuses for this trash, such a garbage effort. Okay, we're gonna approach that a little bit differently. But let's talk about Blue Nebraska.
Yes.
So for the first time in 724 days, Connecticut lost at home to Creighton, who was much more prepared to play that game, and I think we're more locked in than Creighton was. And as this trend has happened, so Creighton has won 8 of the last 10 against UConn, who has won back-to-back national championships. In those 10 games, Creighton has only allowed UConn to score 63 points per game.
Wow.
They were 19 points under their average on Saturday. There is a lot in the way that Creighton won that game, a game in which, you know what? That was a game for March.
Oh, absolutely.
Creighton is on the right side of the bubble right now. They are in the should-be-in category.
Where's
A little bit
Andrew?
interesting game tomorrow night in Chicago. But that game, and this is what the Creighton-UConn matchup since Hurley has been in stores, that actually is a mismatch. Mac against Hurley.
Ooh.
It is. It's a mismatch. You know why? Because when that game is played where you have to use your head,
Shout out Mac.
Creighton wins. When that game is played where you just have athletes, UConn probably wins.
Yeah.
But more than likely, when Creighton and UConn get together, it's turned into a great rivalry between fan bases. And, you know, I hope UConn recognizes that we're in the middle of America. I didn't see any corn tweets.
No corn.
Yeah, they didn't have any corn
Ooh.
tweets,
Okay.
which they're popular for. But when that game becomes just X's and O's, Hurley can't compete with Mac.
Mhm.
And that's what happened on Saturday.
Well, I think that, and then Hurley starts bubbling over, and starts getting mad and yelling and screaming. And
I mean, that's
you know,
every day.
I know that's what he does, but I guess it's fun when you're winning or when you're up and when you're front running. But
Yeah.
when you're down and you're trying to come back, I don't think that's the best way to galvanize the troops and get them going in the direction you need them to go in. I mean, that's just not coaching. That's just human ethics 101.
I know.
Right?
I saw more memes of Hurley kissing basketball officials and Mahomes kissing NFL officials.
That
this
was a
weekend.
funny
But
meme.
with Greg,
Oh, uncomfortable.
I mean, we got to start talking about, and I understand Creighton doesn't have the record and isn't having the season that would warrant a AP Coach of the Year award for Mr. McDermott. But with what he's done,
No, I'm not. No.
no. I'm not saying he's
No.
Coach of the Year.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's Coach of the Year. I'm just saying he's not going to get the recognition, the national recognition that he deserves because he's done a hell of a job coaching this team, getting them back on the track after losing an important player in Pop Isaacs and losing at Georgetown. I'm just saying, I'm just giving him credit here and saying that he's done an incredible job.
I agree. So
Yeah.
I think he gets for the good and the bad.
Yeah.
I think you have to knock him for the roster construction with this current roster.
I agree.
And going all in on Pop Isaacs, who has a history of a hip injury, but you also have to throw him flowers. They're 5-1, and they've recalibrated since Pop Isaacs' injury. I think Saturday was, and you hear this a lot from people that have played for Mac about the culture. And in these games, when you're locked in, you know, and it could come down to a bounce here or there, and they lose the game. But that was a That was a culture game on the road, really in a game where I think UConn thought they were going to win. They were going to get a patented beginning of the second half run, and they never did. And Creighton didn't flinch. Now, there's another part of this is you're playing in stores and Hurley is riding the officials. You expect a call or two to go against you.
Sure.
It didn't happen to Creighton.
No.
Even at the end where Ashworth had the foul, which they debated for a while, did he foul on the shot, which would have been 3 free throws? A lot of times in stores, that's going against you. It didn't go against you on Saturday.
I do want to say this. We've talked about this a little at length with you here and even with you not, here, whether it be with Jimmy or, the people we've had in the studio. Like with Creighton, we've been talking about, look, you have these 4 games. You have UConn on the road, then you have UConn at home, then you have Marquette, then you have St. John's, right? Those are like the 4 big games remaining on the Big East schedule. You need to grab one of those big wins because you need another signature win to get you in the tournament, right? To secure yourself on the right side of the bubble. Now that they've had that, you just got to hope there isn't they don't lay off the gas pedal, that they don't relax now that they're playing DePaul and they're playing Seton Hall and that their schedule gets easier. They still need to continue this momentum. They still need to play high levels of basketball because that stretch where you have UConn, Marquette, and St. John's all relatively close to each other toward the end of the year, that's going to be massive. Now, no longer about getting into the tournament, but about where you're going to be seated in the tournament. Now, if they were to go 0-3 and they get blown out in all those games, then we can start talking about, well, maybe they played themselves out of the tournament. But because of this massive win on the road at UConn, I mean, it's exactly what they needed. Another thing, too, to add to this, like Isaac Trout, 11 points off the bench. I don't know if they don't win without his 11 points off the bench against UConn. I think that's a fact. And you can even go as far to say as, I know they won by 20 against Providence, but his 4-for-4 3-point performance, those shots came at the biggest moments in that Providence game where it still was pretty competitive. And so you can go as far to say, you don't know for sure if they end up winning that game against Providence if he doesn't play in the manner in which he plays. And so Jemiah Neal had an incredible game, an incredible first half.
I don't know that you don't win on Saturday if he doesn't have a career day.
Yeah.
He had 24 and was a problem defensively.
I mean,
for UConn trying to guard him.
I mean, if he goes, that team goes. And so, like I said, if they're going to get into the tournament, Ashbrenner, Kalkbrenner, or Neal consistently have to play really well. But if they're going to win a tournament game, which is, another discussion at this point, I know it's difficult, with the roster construction, and this roster does have flaws. But they can win a tournament game if the bench continues to play in the manner in which it does. And Trout playing that 11-point performance and that, 4-for-4 3-point performance against Providence, it's why they've created this momentum and have gotten themselves from firmly being out to firmly being in the tournament at this point.
You just can't go 500 in the Big East. You go 500 in this conference this year, no bueno.
No.
But they're 5-2, and there's a log jam. St. John's is 7-1. Stole Seton Hall's money. Marquette is a weird team. I'm not enamored with Marquette. They got beat by Xavier. I'm also not enamored with UConn. Now, they don't have McNeely, and they should have McNeely when they come here to play. But they're a different group. They're not as intimidating. Like, I don't think it was intimidating on Saturday.
No.
I think they were waiting that it's just UConn and it's going to flip, and they never did to begin the second half. Now, they made a run, and Creighton responded. But also, their perimeter defense, which the last 2 years has been filthy, they are leaky, and Creighton exposed that.
Absolutely.
So, and what is Villanova? But this is a league, and Georgetown all of a sudden got beat, and now Georgetown's on a little bit of a skid. DePaul finally won a game for the first time in 400 years, since Tom Kleinschmidt was playing.
Mark Aguirre had
you have to be better than 500 in the league.
Yeah.
And they're at 5-2 with 13 to go. So I think you probably have 12-13 to feel comfortable. But that road win, that's going to age pretty well. Winning not in Hartford, but winning in stores.
I'm just beating UConn in general. They could not have.
You get a little more love on the road.
They could not have made the tournament if they had gone 0-4 against St. John's, Marquette, and UConn twice. They would not. It would have been incredibly difficult to not have those wins and be in the Big East and make the tournament. The fact that they were able to secure one of them, and in fact, probably the toughest one out of all 4 of them, being on the road against UConn, is massive. Now, once again, you cannot let up. You cannot shrug your shoulders. You cannot exhale here and say, okay, In the bracketologies, we're fine. We're safe. We picked up a big win against UConn. Now we're facing these other teams that aren't really good. No, you got to put pedal to the metal. You got to keep going. You got to beat DePaul handily. You got to beat Seton Hall handily. You cannot let this momentum that you've created out of nothing.
Seton Hall's in trouble.
They were nothing.
As a basketball program.
The Blue Jays had 0, Gary. They were done. We were written off. We weren't even talking. We weren't talking about them nearly as much and nearly as positively as we have in the past. And they've been able to cultivate this from guys stepping up, veterans not. Ryan Kalkbrenner does not want to have his last season end in the NIT.
I've been saying that for a while. He played 39 minutes.
And Stephen Ashworth is one of the most valuable basketball players in all of college basketball for what he does, not only just shooting the ball, but creating for others. They do not want their legacy and their season to end playing for something that doesn't really matter. And they've galvanized these groups. They've motivated everybody. And now you got Isaac Trout coming off the bench, playing big minutes. And you have Jemiah Neal, who has played one of the best basketball games of his entire career against one of the best teams he'll play in the Big East on one of the hardest road conditions he'll face. I mean, this team is rolling.
I know you're beating the drum for Trout. I would take on Saturday Mason Miller's defense on Alex Caravan as more important.
Yes.
That's
a great take.
Caravan, he didn't score until the second half.
Miller's long. He was long. He looked good on his lateral movement. I think it was about, I don't want to specifically pinpoint it, but it's a great take because I remember he was moving across the perimeter on the wing on the far side. He was able to get his hand into the ball area, and then it actually flipped UConn all the way around and forced a bad shot. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you don't really notice it because defense is such an unnoticeable thing when you're playing it really, really well. And then, it's a great take. I mean, he's been playing. There's a reason why, you look at the stat sheet and you're like, oh, maybe why is he playing so much if he's not getting those statistics that you think? And then you watch that game and you go, oh, now I know why
he's playing because he's been great defensively.
Yeah, exactly.
He might not be, I mean, he's on campus to make threes, but his defense is keeping him on the floor. That's like the opposite with Asijan. Asijan is starting to make shots, but Asijan defense is so, can you keep him in crunch time? All right, so good win for Creighton. They are in Chicago to take on DePaul tomorrow night. Nebraska back home for a bubblicious game against USC. They've lost 4 in a row. We'll get into what happened at College Park yesterday, because I actually, of the 4 losses, I'm brighter after the Maryland loss than the previous 3. I'm not on the Fire Fred bandwagon. But I'm also on the we got to speak about some veterans on Nebraska's roster. But I love something Fred did yesterday that might subtly help them get through this rocky road. You like that ice cream?
No, not really.
Yeah, I think it was an older generation.
I'm a mint chocolate chip guy.
All right, hour in the books. Evan Bland, Jacob Bigelow a little bit later on Gary and Matt. 1620 The Zone. All right, I wish weather, folks, because it's cold outside. It is minus 50 wind chill in Minot, North Dakota.
Ugh.
That's like the freezer bowl.
Isn't
That
it?
was 60.
Minus 47 in Fargo, minus 26 in Sioux Falls. Driving down Interstate 29.
I was up for 3 jobs in the Dakotas.
I've been up for one up there too.
Like literally 9 months ago, I was up for 3 different jobs and like really, really wanted.
Probably
one
would have
of
been
them.
single if I took
And
one of them.
We tried.
They-
We tried to get you to one of those cities I just mentioned.
They warned me in the interview. They're like, "Look, man, it gets cold up here," and I was like, "No, I'm from Chicago, and I've dealt with the snow, and
Did they
I've
laugh
been
at
in
you
like
as
cold
well?
weather." And they go, "No, kid, no. This ain't Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a little different up here." And then you go up there to when the Mavericks were
Grand
playing,
Forks and Florida. Yeah.
and we're doing remote, and you start telling me what the temperature is out there and what you're dealing with, and I go, "Thank God, thank Lord." Someone up there was doing me a favor, because you know what? I can't. The worst part of my day, and by the way, like this is like kind of a third world problem, because there are so many other people dealing with terrible things and issues happening in their lives, and I recognize that.
The bidet
But
is
the
broken.
worst part of my day is when at 5:15 I have to walk to my car, and it's outside, and I'm frozen, and I'm freezing, and I'm shaking, and then I get to the car, and there's frost all over the windshield. So then I have to go, and I have to grab the scraper, and my scraper sucks. My scraper's terrible. And then I have to hop in the car, and I got to wait. And this thing, it's a nice car, takes a little long to heat up, and I don't have the automatic quick start, and so I'm just shaking in there. Ugh. You just said minus
Shout out
50.
remote start. Best
I
thing
just
my
got
wife ever
cold
got
when
me.
you said minus 50. How are you supposed to operate that? In that?
Well,
Dan
so
Fouts can feel it.
Is it a dry heat?
I ask people, and they say you get used to it. But you can see it. Like, I've been to Buffalo, and I was up for a job in Buffalo, and the interview was going great.
Yeah.
Like, I was fired up. It's WGR. It's a great sports talk station in Buffalo. This is when I was really young in my career. And the interview was going great. We had back and forth.
Sure.
There used to be a sports director, TV sports director in Kearney, who is from Buffalo. So that was my connection.
You're in. Okay.
And so he's like all excited. I didn't know you knew Kyle and blah, blah, blah. So we get through the interview, and it was a good like 45 minutes. And then there's this pause, and I'm like, this is like one of my first sports talk job interviews. I'm like, they're going to offer me the job.
Yeah, this
They're
is
gonna
it.
offer me the job.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Western New York.
Who am I going to call first?
And the guy goes, now you do understand that it snows here. And I was like, and I'm like in my mid 20s. And I'm like, oh yeah. I know, I've seen it. You know what? I'm okay with it. I like snow. I'm from the Midwest. And the guy pauses again and he goes, this is Buffalo. You do know that it snows here. And it doesn't just snow, it snows a lot. And I'm like, no problem. I go, I'll be able to navigate. And I said this, I'm a good driver in the snow.
Did they all laugh at you?
And the guy goes, it snows a lot in Buffalo. Have you ever been here during the winter? And I said, no, but the summers are lovely. Boom. Never heard back again.
Oh.
Never heard back again. So here's the thing about people from Buffalo. And I want to put this out there as a Chiefs fan going
Go
against
ahead.
America's team this week.
I'll give you the podium.
I really like Bills fans. I think compared to Bengals fans and Texans fans and other fans, I like Bills fans. So if it's not my team that's going to win a Super Bowl, I hope the Bills get to experience that and finally get the 90s off their back and they win a Super Bowl. I like the Buffalo Bills fans. They are passionate. They understand football. People that I know that went last year to the divisional round in Buffalo were treated really, really well.
They've done great charity work for opposite teams.
So
and whatnot.
I'm a fan of the Bills fans. Okay. And I like Josh Allen. I like fullbacks that play quarterback.
Yeah.
So I like Buffalo. But the people of Buffalo, if you ever go to Buffalo, and not just Niagara Falls, because Niagara Falls is not Buffalo.
Right.
Niagara Falls is Toronto.
Buffalo is what they showed
But
last
you can
night.
see it on people's faces that live there. They just know the impending doom of winter. You just look at them, and their faces are a little bit rough. And they just know that it's creeping. It might be the middle of July, and it's beautiful in Buffalo, and you're down by the water, but you can tell it in their face that it's creeping in, that it's going to be winter. People in North Dakota are the same way. They love their summers. They get after it. You don't have many days.
All 2 weeks.
But you can also feel it. They know it's coming.
It's like Westeros.
They know it's coming.
It's like Westeros.
Yeah.
Winter's coming. Yeah. Winter's the long winter.
I thought he said Westeros.
Do you think
so I could be in Buffalo today and I'd be, boy, that'd be really odd doing another year of Buffalo sports talk when they're playing the Chiefs. I love the Bills fans.
I was gonna say, like, do you think
But I hope you don't win on Sunday.
you didn't get that job because that guy was like gatekeeping Buffalo winners a little bit?
A little bit of it was probably I'm not from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Should you have said I love winter?
Which in our business is very territorial.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
You're not southern
I
enough.
also he really reiterated that it snows a lot.
Do you think, like, if you showed the fear of God in your eyes and you were like, oh, okay, like you were like, but you also showed that, hey, I respect the winner, but I'm ready for it and I understand it. Do you think you might have gotten a call back? Because that's
You're
crazy.
taking your shirt off in the
I'm
office.
gonna tell you something right now. To be a qualified candidate and have a really good interview and then not get hired because you were too enthusiastic about Buffalo winners is wild.
So I did a little research and I sent him an email.
It's relatable.
I'm like, you know what? I've been looking. Probably I would get an apartment here
Okay.
or a house here because it doesn't snow as much here. Crickets. Never heard from him again.
Do you can you imagine him going back to I have to assume that guy probably had a boss, right? And the boss goes, "Oh, how was
all
Sharp?
do
How
that.
was the
He
interview?"
was the program director.
And he goes, "It's a good kid. He's got a good future. He's going to do great things. Probably going to win a couple broadcaster of the year awards in his future, but
Just not in Western New York.
can't handle the winners." What do you think that?
But okay.
You should have brought up the anchor
yeah.
bar.
Yeah,
That's a little ridiculous.
do you think I have a lawsuit?
I just no, I don't know.
Is it weather discrimination?
Yeah, is
what I
that a
think.
thing? Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
We can dive deep into the books and see if maybe you. I mean, what's the statute of limitations?
I
on
bet
weather
Harvey
discrimination?
Specter would know.
I mean, sir, can you imagine going back? He's not ready for the winners.
But what did I say to you when I was trying to help you with the Fargo job? I said, you do know that it gets cold up there.
And I was the same way. I was like, and
I don't care.
that was actually
I'll lug equipment across the Fargo Dome parking lot to go to the Shield Center. I don't care.
I'll slice open that tauntaun and crawl inside.
I said, Matt, it's cold. It's a different type of cold in North Dakota.
that's the funny enough. That was the second funniest thing that happened in that interview because the other one was, and he was a great guy, and not going to say his name or anything like that.
You
but
mispronounced bison.
but
They call
like-
it bison.
No. I had
Bison.
a long conversation with BD, and he was like, "Hey, bison. And
not bison.
And so
bison.
actually that happened, and I was like, "Bison," and he was like, "Hey, good job." And I'm like, "Thank you." But
I've done a couple of
the
their
guy,
gigs. First
great
thing
dude,
you told me was
great
that.
dude. Hopefully, actually, I hope I stay in touch with him because it was actually a great interview. But at one point, he goes, "Hey, you have a girlfriend?"
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
I don't think you can ask that in an interview.
I don't think so.
But he was like, "Do you have a girlfriend or
Was he setting you up?
Anyone that's gonna come up with you here?" And I go, "No. Like, it's just gonna be me." And he goes, "Okay, good, because we're gonna work you like a dog."
Oh,
Wow.
He was like, we're gonna work you like a dog, and you're really not gonna have that much time to really do anything with that or
I owe my wife
make
an
that
apology.
any better. So
I
I
mean,
just
at least he's
I
honest,
just
yeah.
want to make sure that
Yeah.
you're not like there's no one else that has any sort of responsibilities with you because we're gonna use you. And I'm like, okay,
too
sounds
bad he
good,
didn't set you up. Damn.
But so as cold as it is outside, we just got to make it through tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to make it through tomorrow, and we start chopping off
Hey
days.
guys, we're going 1-0 every day. Every day we go 1-0.
I like how you're thinking. But for both of you guys that are dog owners, and as cold as it is outside, would you, and your dog's got to go out,
Yeah.
but you're probably going to get frostbite. Do you choose frostbite for the good of the dog, or do you say, dog, just suck it up? We're not going outside.
So what I do with my little French bulldog Rocket, who I miss so much.
Shout out Rocket.
We can't wait to see him in a month.
Can you get him down here?
No, I mean it's my dad's
Oh,
dog.
okay.
Like it's
Not the family dog, it's your dad's dog?
Well, no, it's the family dog, but Rocket is with. They have the closest relationship. But then after dad, it's me, okay?
Okay.
Because I take him on the walks and everything like that. But when it gets too cold and mom's like, we can't take him out, I go downstairs to the basement. We have a nice basement. I take a hockey stick and I stick handle a ball.
Start shooting.
And I start moving around, and he's doing a little agility. He's getting sweaty. He's panning. That's what we do. So no, I mean I have that luxury. I don't know though. Like How long?
Frostbite or the dog?
How long of a walk are we talking here? Because you can put on 2 pairs of gloves and 3 pairs of socks and 2 pairs of pants, and I think you'd be good for like 15 minutes. And if the dog can get going and maybe a faster walk.
What if the dog doesn't get going? What if the dog is, taking its time to tinkle? And you suffer frostbite. Is it worth it?
I think it is. For the dog, absolutely.
One, it's worth it. Two, my dog's climate-controlled puppy, so instead she goes really quickly and come back and says, Grandpa lives in San Antonio. I bet he'd like to see us some more now.
Yeah.
All right. So just be prepared. Most schools are not in session today because of Martin Luther King Day. It is a national holiday.
I'm a radio rookie because I actually did text our boss. I was like, hey, we're working on Monday, right?
So there are a couple of radio companies in this town that it is a holiday.
Okay.
I don't believe our company recognizes it, i.e. we are here.
Yes.
But we're here for the people.
We're always here.
We're here for the people. This is also a fascinating day for me because as a poli-sci guy, like politics and the White House, regardless of who's in it.
Right. I like watching
my power ranking is always, it's Ronald Reagan is at the top, is the transition in the White House where, like in this case, the Bidens go out the back door. Like they've already packed up all of the Biden White House.
Right.
And like while things are going on, they move the new president in. That's fascinating to me how all of that logistics works. Because one's going out the back with all of their stuff, and the other has the moving truck. And I've never seen like video, but I've heard people talking about the process. It's like wild.
Where do you want the Kid Rock mural? We watched that documentary in like 7th grade civics class.
Those are the people that actually should be running the country. Is that moves one president out and one in,
absolutely,
and you don't even miss a beat.
And not only are they moving,
and then throwing the people that work the Chick-fil-A drive-through, and then America is back, baby.
Not only people that move in, but like they have to have an interior designer come in and ask, hey, where do you want the couches? What are the couches going to be? Where are we going to put them? Like there's
posters.
It's a whole plan that goes into it. I think I would have been a good wedding planner.
You still can be. You're a young pup.
I think I've been a pretty good wedding planner. I think to be like a wedding planner, you got to have some organization, but you also have to have a little chutzpah. Like you can't be afraid to tell anybody. Like, hey, you got to be fierce a little bit. You got to go here. We got to be here. We got to move. Everyone in the trolley. Let's go. We got to get to the dinner.
The lady at the
we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. We don't want to. I wouldn't
be
be afraid to be like, look, you don't need to put Aunt Jenny next to your cousin Phil. All right, we can separate these 2 tables. Okay. I think I would have been pretty good at it.
Side hustle. Radio doesn't pay that great.
Yeah. Maybe I do become a wedding planner. I could be a good wedding planner. You're shaking your head over there like absolutely.
The wedding king of Omaha.
I don't know
McMaster.
Of your youth that brides to be would probably invest in.
Sure.
You might have to be like a
wedding.
helper.
Yeah.
You could charm them.
But I think I'd be good muscle. Like I'd be good muscle for a really good wedding planner. Like I wouldn't be afraid to tell people like, hey, you got to get.
I could see you fighting a bridezilla.
I'm the groom
or a mother-in-law zilla.
I already had to fight a groomzilla. It's my brother.
That's pretty deep.
Commentate.
John writes in the Equitable Bank inbox. Jay season ticket holder. He loves Hurley. Love the yelling and screaming. No kids gloves. AKA. R.I.P. Bobby Knight and Mike Leach.
Would you rather
migraine? Can't practice. Collinsworth. Go get in the closet.
That's a crazy sentence. What would you? Okay,
like a haiku.
I'm gonna give you the
I think Craig James' son.
What would you rather have? A coach like Fred, who sometimes he's a little bit too calm. Sometimes you wish he worked the referees a little bit. Sometimes you wish he showed a little bit more passion and energy. Or would you rather have psycho Dan Hurley, who probably does it way too much and makes you uncomfortable, especially if you're a season ticket holder of UConn that sits really close to the bench? What would you rather have as your head coach of your favorite basketball team?
Fred's a little bit tough because there's a health issue that Fred can't just go ballistic.
Yes.
I think the most upset we've seen Fred is when he turned and he kicked the scorer's table.
He got teed up at that Ohio State game a couple years ago when they were just getting terrible calls. That was good. I mean, that motivated. I mean, that got people cheering really loud for.
You can't argue with Hurley's results. I mean, the man can coach basketball.
Absolutely.
And he's won 2 straight national titles. And some of the stuff he does works. Okay? You work the ref, you're going to get a call. They didn't get calls on Saturday.
No.
I mean, they even got a call. So Hurley's got this really unique ability to chew a ref, like while the game is going on, and he's calling a play out, a set for his team.
Yeah, I've heard coaches like
But
that.
they had one of the refs called a foul right in front of Hurley, who was on him.
Yeah.
And then he called the foul. And I'm like, man, that takes some stones for that ref to do that. I would probably.
I'm not saying would you rather have Hurley or Fred. I'm just saying that the one. It's not about Fred or Dan. It's just about.
You're talking about the demeanor.
I'm talking about the demeanor. What demeanor would you rather have in a head coach, regardless of results? Regardless of results, they have the same results. Both coaches are decent. Just one is really, really calm, and one is really, really wild. What would you rather have?
I'm probably going to take Hurley.
It's not about taking Hurley.
I'm going to take that style.
You're going to take that.
I'm going to take that style.
I think I would. I'd probably go with you too. I'd rather have the bitching, screaming, loud in your face, yelling coach. Because going back to like Chicago and the Cubs, like watching Craig Counsell this year, and just
not Leah
was the most frustrating.
Lou Piniella.
Just but that's what I grew up with.
Well, Dusty Baker was the same way.
That's what I grew up with. I grew up with the I almost swore. I almost said like 4 of the 7 words that I can't say on the radio. But I grew up with the mean coaches, the ones who weren't afraid to throw dirt at the shoes of the umpires and that weren't afraid to yell. Like, I feel like you got to have that a little bit. I feel like you got to have a little bit of attitude. Like, I don't want my coach to be like, and that's more so Craig than Fred. Like, I think Fred does get fired up.
It'd be tough to do a radio show. Coach,
We'll be right back with the opening tip.
That's my quick.
Right after this.
All right, bring in Stroke.
Learfield.
All right, here comes Alcantara. I'm Craig Counsell.
CubsCon was this weekend. A little mixed messaging from Sammy, but he was back. Apologized for I don't know what, for being away too long.
Yeah,
Did you say away or white?
For hitting homers, for doing what everybody else was doing at the same time, for literally creating millions, hundreds of thousands of Cubs fans, for bringing that team toward relevancy.
Sammy had a little bit more color. He doesn't look like the pink rabbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will get to Nebraska basketball, who's on a 4-game, not a heater. But I think they showed me something yesterday. Outside of they actually showed me who they are.
I'm excited. I'm excited
for
and
they showed me who they are in the last play, which was a complete botch. Late game, pathetic, and Nebraska cost themselves at Maryland. We'll get into that when we come back. Also, good news for Thomas Fedoni over the weekend. He got some really, really good news. We'll dive into. Evan Bland stops by at 8:30. Jacob Bigelow at 9. I'm sure we'll ask him about Mick Cronin as well.
Broken Mick. He's a broken coach.
Stop talking. You know what? I have no sympathy for UCLA. Didn't you guys take the money and come to the Big Ten not thinking about the student athlete? Didn't you agree to that? I don't know. Maybe I missed it along the way, and UCLA is being held at their will to be in the Big Ten. I don't know.
You're supposed to be a leader of men, not a whining pansy.
Well, sometimes you have a history of never taking accountability. We could learn a lot from Dan Campbell.
Could learn a ton from Dan Campbell.
Off and running on this Monday, 4th and Monday, reaction to the weekend. Plus, there is a game that I didn't get a lot of buzz over the weekend, Ohio State, Notre Dame. The NFL just kind of swallowed us up. But we get college football tonight for the final time this year. We'll have thoughts on that as we roll till 10. Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.
Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the playoffs. Which players are going off, which ones are ice cold. With over 5 million happy players, $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. With their Pick'em game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like yards, touchdowns, interceptions. You'd be surprised some of the things they have in there. So there's lots of chances to make money. Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep writing with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whatever you want. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at the conference championship games. Football was good to me last weekend. It can be good for you this weekend as well. Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em. Download the app, sign up with promo code ZONE, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code ZONE. Must be 18 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, good Monday morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Merry Christmas and whatnot. Ha. You don't know that joke? That's a Spice Adams joke. Anthony Adams, former San Francisco 49er and Chicago Bear.
Not to be confused with the Spice Network.
Or the Spice Girls.
Yes.
Posh.
David Beckham.
Here is Eric. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey. First of all, Gary, go Chiefs. It's a long ways from Romeo Crennel.
Ain't that the truth?
Ooh. Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of take you back on the way back machine.
Okay.
So you guys were talking about Hoiberg versus Hurley. I love Fred's demeanor and mentality and everything, but I kind of long for the days. So my dad and I used to have season tickets for quite a few years in the 80s and 90s, going to Devaney and seeing the sit-down Norm years, where Norm's just up there, Norm Stewart from Missouri's up there just working the refs.
I know that one.
Crowd yelling at him. And you'd see Danny over there, and you knew things were about to go nuclear when Danny would kind of make it a point for the refs to see him take his jacket off. And when you saw that jacket come off, you knew things in Devaney were going to get amped up a little bit, get a little weird. And I don't know. Sometimes I kind of wish Fred had a little bit of that in him. I know that's not really his style, but it'd be nice to see every once in a while. So I kind of miss those old school Danny Nee days, where you'd learn some new words and it was a good time though. I don't know. I just kind of long for those days. So that's all I got.
Well, I don't think we're going to get that with Fred.
No, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
I don't think that's a negativity because Fred is a good basketball coach.
Miles when need be got after it when he needed to go think about punching a fellow coach. He would try.
Those were the days.
But Fred did something yesterday had nothing to do with working the officials. Okay.
You don't even have a jacket to throw anymore.
No, you don't. You have the quarter zip. You can't take it off. That'd be very awkward. I think that would be like a double
Fitzpatrick.
tech. If you went, I took off my quarter zip to throw it, that'd be a double tech.
Also, too, it's hard to take off a quarter zip without the undershirt, revealing yourself as well, because those things are real tight to your body, especially if it's like a polyester fabric.
Yeah, I don't need to see. Yeah, I need my boiler being out there. No. Okay, so Fred did something yesterday, and this is what I know. They've lost 4 in a row, and it feels like the season is slipping away. I was talking to my bracket guys late last night, and they're like, Nebraska is still in. They're probably in 11, but boy, they're creeping the wrong way. And I'm like, don't worry. Bubblicious game on Wednesday against USC is 2 things that kind of give me hope, and also we got no chance. 1, Fred did something. So Fred, after the Rutgers game, touched the third rail about effort. Whenever you go about effort and playing hard, you got to be very careful. You got to have a good handle on your locker room.
Very careful.
Because if you say the wrong thing, your locker room may turn south, and we're just in the middle of January with a lot of season to go. So he did something yesterday, and there were odd lineups on the floor.
There were.
Like Ulis and Morgan playing together.
Ulis and Hoiberg playing together.
He had all 3 point guards out there at one time. But you know what? He did something yesterday that I think was a result of what he saw on Friday and Saturday leading up to yesterday. He played guys at crucial moments that play hard, that maybe worked their butt off in practice in the last 2 days, that he was going to reward them and give them important minutes. And I think he did that yesterday. That's a good sign because weird lineups kept Nebraska in the game.
Yeah.
Then they had, you would think, oh, this team is done. Well, how do you explain the 9-0 run to get back into the game and tie it late? So they at least have that part that is salvageable, and you don't have to worry about that. The part that they don't have that they're not going to get is they got some bad basketball IQ. It's not just at the end of the game, it's throughout the game. They don't have that true point guard, get you in the right set. They don't have an Ashworth. Okay?
No.
I don't want to compare Creighton and Nebraska other than having a point guard, having a dude, and finishing, or just don't screw it up. But Nebraska not having a true big-time point guard that can get people in the right set is a flaw that's been there. But that last possession was so botched from the sideline to the court. I have no idea what Nebraska was doing with the ball screens because it was basically bringing everybody into one spot. And you can do that, but then somebody's got to cut to the basket or cut to an open side so you can skip a pass. No one did that. And you had a timeout to use. If you know that your team doesn't have great basketball IQ and you don't know who's going to grab the ball or who's going to take the shot and your first look doesn't pop, you got to call a timeout. You can't afford to have a situation like that where Nebraska gets a god-awful shot off that's not even really a shot.
It wasn't a shot.
So that's something that's always going to be there. The other part, though, about guys that were in it to win it, and when things could have gone south, they hung in there, and he played guys that play hard for him, even if it's an odd combination. I don't know. I'm mixed. I'm not as discouraged as I know a lot of people are. Wednesday night is humongous for Nebraska. But of the 4-game losing streak, and you ask me after every game how you feeling, I'm actually not feeling terrible after yesterday. Call me crazy. I might be a minority. Sometimes I am. I just feel that way after watching yesterday's game because the intensity and the rotations were better on defense. Did Maryland still hit threes, Matt? Yeah.
Yeah.
But Nebraska was better than they were on Thursday night.
So this is why a non-con schedule is so important. And I'm not sitting up here saying that Nebraska should have played a non-conference schedule that had 8 ranked teams like Alabama and had this incredibly difficult road before, because that can falter a season. But it is important to have a non-conference schedule where you are consistently playing higher level teams, so you know your rotations when you get to those high stakes games. I feel like, and I'm not saying that they should have had 3 or 4 more ranked teams to play in the non-con, but they could have played a tougher non-con. And I think that might have benefited them because now you're at the point in Nebraska basketball where you are playing these better teams and high stakes games, and you're having to flip your lineups around and start questioning whether guys that you thought were going to be big parts of this team, how much you're going to actually play them now. Because when you were playing, lower level teams, they look great. But now that you're playing these higher level teams, you're figuring out, oh, okay, wait, actually they're not as effective as we thought they were against higher competition. And now that's why you're seeing these weird lineups and Ulis all of a sudden out of nowhere having to play 27 minutes and having 10 assists. And you're flipping the lineup just to find something because
there's no consistency.
You didn't really know what you had consistently against high level teams. And I think, look, it's one of those small little things, but it's one of those things that matter when you're on the bubble. It's the little stuff that nudges you in, right? To know that you have those rotations. They're figuring that out. At least though, Gare, I'll say this. I give him a ton of credit. The fact that he's actually doing it. The fact that he's actually like, okay, wait, I'm not going to be stubborn here. I'm not just going to play the guys that we thought we were going to play consistently 3 weeks ago. These guys aren't performing. We got to switch this up. We got to find something. So I last play, absolutely right. Absolutely pathetic. I do give Fred a little bit of credit, though, in this regard. He did take responsibility for his mistakes. I want to read you this quote from the Husker Radio Network.
Oh, whoa, D'Amico Ryans, listen up.
Husker Radio Network,
You
this was in the
scared me.
postgame. He goes, this is from Fred Hoiberg. That last possession was disappointing. We had an action called, and we had 2 guys in the wrong spot. I've got to call a timeout when we're not organized like that. There's a lot there to break down. First off, the fact that he's admitting his mistake. Hey, I appreciate the admission. I appreciate you taking responsibility, but you get paid to call that timeout. You get paid to reorganize.
Well, I look
guys.
at it different. You have been around long enough. You know this team. Yeah, thanks for taking credit, but why was there no timeout?
Exactly.
That play was doomed from the start.
And also, too.
And probably don't you think, because this becomes a thing, they could have fouled, foul up 3. Is out of a timeout, they're going to foul right away. But you have to help your own team. Your team is not good enough on the floor to, between the earlobes, figure things out.
Why are you January in Big Ten play in a massive moment in a game where you're getting to the point where almost all these you have to have in order to secure yourself in the NCAA tournament? Why are we this far into the season and you're calling a final action and you have 2 guys in the wrong spot? How are they in the wrong spot?
Because you don't have a true point guard that is just take over and get everybody set up.
That's not even the whole he had a timeout and he didn't call it. That's not even the worst part of it. The fact that you are a grown-up college basketball team fighting for your life to get to the NCAA tournament in a massive moment, and you got two guys in the wrong spot.
Well,
it happened in, when they played Iowa in overtime, where you had your center, who played 4 minutes, by the way, yesterday, who started for him, screening the wrong guy in the wrong manner. How do we not know the plays?
I've been saying it all year. The basketball IQ is not very good, and you don't have a point guard who just realizes things on the fly, that processes things quick enough. Now, they also have a Bryce Williams problem.
So we'll get there in a second. I want to push back 1 second on your point. You go, they have an IQ problem.
Yep.
I don't even think that's an IQ problem.
No, it's an IQ problem. Why do you dribble into a crowd?
Well, wait.
Were you taught that in
AAU?
No.
But I'm saying when you're getting the play.
You can do that in fourth grade. You can dribble into a crowd, and people go, oh, that's cute.
Well, it is.
When you're 20 years old, you can't dribble into a crowd.
But let me get there. When they're putting up the numbers and they're going, hey, this is the play, and then you look at the numbers and you think, and you do the wrong play or you do the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, that's an IQ problem. It's also a preparation problem. How do you not know what the play is at this point when you're being told what the play is? So yes, it is an IQ problem. I think more so, though, it's less of a, you're right. I think of IQ as like dribbling in certain situations and thinking on the fly. They have that for sure. But also just looking at what he's calling or listening what he's calling. How do you not know where you're supposed to be? I mean, that is not just an IQ problem. It's a preparation problem. Bryce Williams disappears.
Yeah,
He's a disappearer.
They have a Bryce Williams problem. They have a problem for the good and the bad. The good is he's a guy that can get you a bucket. They don't have enough of those guys on the floor. But then I think people rely on him too much. But there's something about Bryce that is up. So I'm going to give you a little stat. You ready for a stat?
I like this.
You like my nuggets?
Gary's Nuggets, brought to you by no one.
Possibility to be sponsored.
Possibly.
I'd like my nuggets sponsored.
Gary's Nuggets and Matt's Stats. Open for business.
So
mixed stats.
The last 4 games. Would you like to take a gander? That's a good old person term.
Yeah, I like that.
At how many free throw attempts Bryce Williams has had?
Ooh.
Last 4 games.
Total.
6.
We playing the prices right?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to say 9. I think he's had 9.
Nice.
So he's had 13.
Okay.
The previous 4 games,
Oh,
31.
Yeah, he had a lot.
So there's something there of Bryce, be all Big Ten guy. But the consistency of Nebraska on offense starts with number 3 and grabbing the basketball and taking over and touching the basketball. Because then I think guys get out of their lane when there's now Bryce to bail you out, and then you get the Juwan Gary experience, which we are on one hell of a roller coaster with Juwan Gary.
You never know.
And that's the problem with Nebraska right now is you never know the inconsistency that they have on offense. Now, they got back to playing how they played on defense. Again, I was at least encouraged. I know Maryland hit threes, and the three-point defense is god-awful, but compared to where they were in the previous 3 games, I thought they were better intertwined. And it was an ugly game, and that was a perfect game yesterday for Nebraska to steal a game on the road. There was a light crowd. The game was ugly.
Light is a nice way of putting it.
You ain't got no alibi. That game was ugly. That game was ugly. Steve Blake didn't like that game. Rest in peace, Lynn Bias wouldn't have played in that game. Rink Mass said, ooh, I got to look away sitting on the bench. Because it was UGLILY. You ain't got no alibi. It was a bad day in College Park. But that game was there to be stolen.
Thank you for the promo.
Yeah. Joey writes in to the Equitable Bank inbox about Nebraska basketball.
Doing traffic.
What? That was great. That was incredible.
Nebraska makes some of the most untimely turnovers I've ever seen. The Morgan over and back.
Oof.
God. And see, there's the consistency. Like Andrew Morgan warmed your cockles, and you're like, man, the mullet from Wasika is doing work, because he was. You look at the first half.
He was, oh my God.
I mean, him and Ulis, who would have bet on that those two would be like key components?
Yeah.
Because Ulis is, I mean, he's been cheeks.
He looked like Duncan. I laughed my butt off, though. Morgan, I think it was in the first half when he was hot, or no, I think it was in the second half when he was like getting it going, and they get it on the far side block, right on the baseline, and he turns away, right? So he gets the ball, and then he turns toward the defender, and now he's facing him. He's face on, and he's staring right in his eyes like, oh, I'm going to take him. I'm going to do it. He goes, 1, 2. double comes off his leg out of bounds going the other way. I go, yep, there we go. There we go. Like that. His day's done now, you know?
The Morgan over and back, Bryce throwing to Ulis when he's clearly not looking at him. Now that was a rough one.
That was a rough one too.
Just makes no sense. But like I said a week ago, Ulis, Morgan, or both should start. Ulis really closes out on the back end defensively very well, and it seems like the offense runs more smooth with him out there. Just seems like he is more of a Big Ten point guard than Raleigh. Yes, but I haven't seen it.
No, and
that was one of his better games yesterday. And
he had 10 assists.
And you're like, okay, where has this guy been? And you have 3 point guards that are on the floor together. Like Fred was like, screw that.
Screw it.
Guys that are going to play hard are going to play for me, and I don't care if you haven't played together. That's our best matchup.
So with Ulis, clearly it's taken him a while to get back to where he was when he was at Iowa, where he was starting consistently at Iowa after having that whole year off due to, NCAA gambling things.
You say that so quietly.
Yeah.
You're like, gambling things.
So I want to go back to Bryce real quick. I was watching Karl Anthony Towns. It was 2018.
Holy moly! Where are we going here?
I was in Chicago. I was watching. It was
pull up a seat.
It was Jimmy Butler and Taj Gibson's return.
Don't mention Jimmy Butler.
It was dark and cold.
Butler's playing, and
yesterday.
it's a pretty competitive game. And all of a sudden, Cat catches the ball, and I go, "Oh, I didn't even notice he was out there." And he takes this little jumper, he hits it, and I look up at the board, and I've been watching this game pretty intently for the last, we're in the fourth quarter here. Makes a shot. I look up at the board to see what his stats are. I go, oh, he's got 22 points. I'm like, that is like the quietest 22 I've ever seen. Like I barely even recognized he was out there in the court, and he's got 22 points. He's got like a career day for some guys coming off the bench in the NBA. And I had no idea. And that's kind of what Cat was. He was this great stat guy, and he would play the games, and then you'd be like, oh, he didn't play that well. And then you'd look and you go, oh, he actually had like 24 and 12. Yeah. He did play well, and he shot well, but he disappeared. It was almost like he wasn't making an impact on the game. During this rough Bryce Williams stretch, I felt the same way, where it's like he grabs the ball and I'm like, oh, Bryce is out there. Bryce is playing. Bryce is currently trying to get the offense going. And I look at the stats and I'm like, oh, 14 points, like pretty decent shooting day. Like statistically, he wasn't awful, but you start questioning. You're like, is he out there? Is he on the court? Like, why isn't we talked about Alpha Bryce when this team was winning? It was Alpha Bryce. It was every possession he touched the ball, and you knew he had it, and there was a chance he was going to shoot it and he was going to score. These last couple games, I don't know where that's gone. I don't know why that's happened. I don't know if it's a Fred thing. I don't know if it's a Bryce thing. I would love to sit down, no microphones, no nothing, off the record, and hear, what do the people there in the building really think what's going on within these last couple of games? Because it's not necessarily a stat thing.
I'm going to give you a stat. I'm sticking with my stat.
Go ahead.
13 free throw attempts the last 4 games. He's a good free throw shooter. I mean, Nebraska free throw shooting is, but Bryce needs to get to the line.
Well, when
Nebraska was playing well, that stretch in Hawaii and the non-con, Bryce was shooting a lot. The team was shooting a lot of free throws. Bryce was shooting a lot of free throws. 13 free throw attempts the last 4 games.
What does that tell you? It tells you he's being less aggressive. Why all of a sudden is he less aggressive?
I don't know.
Did he lose confidence?
I would be okay.
I would be
okay with him being selfish.
He has to be. He has to be selfish.
Maybe it's not in his DNA.
Who else do you trust on that team to be selfish and go and get a bucket?
Well, you threw in the word trust. I was going to say number 4.
You still trust him?
No, you threw in trust, so that eliminated that.
No, there's no one else.
Finish up Joey's email. And Cronin, so much to unpack from last week, but as you see, you play William Kyle III more, you win. Big, not a coincidence. That's the one. So Chucky Hepburn and Frankie Fiddler were never coming to Nebraska, but William Kyle III should be at Nebraska. If he's at Nebraska and Braxton Mia is not, we have a different kind of team that we're discussing on a daily basis that is Nebraska basketball.
Is Mia going to get Griffiths?
I don't know. They like starting him so he can come out and wave to the crowd and then go sit on the bench, but he's not in your best 5. I mean, what your best 5, this is the problem with Nebraska is this is becoming a discussion right now in the middle of January, and you're, 18 games in, what is your best 5? That should be established. But it's like a revolving door of, One night it's this. Last night it's, let's see, let's go Hoiberg, let's go Eulis, let's go Morgan. We got to have Bryce out there. And you know what? Asijan is starting to shoot it, just can't play defense. That would be my 5. But that won't be the same 5 that
No.
we'll talk about USC in the Bubblicious game on Wednesday night.
Because a week ago it was Raleigh.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick
that's where they're at.
Real quick on the Mia thing. We've talked about, Creighton has failed in the construction of the roster and they've had to battle through that and adjust to that. With Nebraska, I think there was a bit of an error here. With last year it worked, having Josiah Alec and having these bigger guys who just are really just there to grab rebounds and be bangers in the paint, right? Because you had Casey, you had Wilcher, you had guys who could spread the floor. Yep. You had Rink, who could shoot pretty consistently, not great, but pretty consistently from 3. When Braxton Mia does not work on the floor with Morgan or Burke because you don't have anyone who can space it. Because who is going to be shooting? Who's going to be spacing out the paint enough for Mia to really make a difference within the paint? Yep. You don't have that. So it's like, it made sense, like, oh, we're going to keep this tradition going of like getting transfer portal guys who can like do well in the paint and like play well on defense. But he is a 0 on offense because the offense can't operate around him because there's no spacing. It's a failure. What are you looking at?
Boy.
Look at her.
I don't know enough fashion. Melania Trump. Hello.
She looks like she's in True Grit.
Nice. Yeah. If it starts raining, she's good.
She looks like Haley Steinfeld in True Grit.
Arriving at St. John's Church.
You ever seen True Grit?
Yeah.
Great,
she does.
Great movie.
Letterman used to have the Father John. I can't remember his name, but that's what the hat reminds me of.
Yeah. It looks like a little bit like a Cam Newton hat. Just a little smaller.
It's MLK Day and Inauguration Day, one of the rare times they're happening on the same day. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the nation's capital. But they'd have nothing on Jaden Daniels or the national championship for college football is tonight between Notre Dame and Ohio State. We'll get to that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Take a quick break. We'll come back. A lot of people have thoughts on Nebraska basketball now in this 4-game losing streak. They get USC. The Must Bus is coming to town on Wednesday night, and he's bringing St. Thomas, who has turned his career around from Millard North. He went from Millard North, didn't work out at Loyola, was looking for a place. He was thinking about just enrolling at UNO, didn't know if he's going to play basketball, goes out to Northern Colorado, balls out, and now he's playing great at USC. Can't wait to see him on Wednesday night. But also, can we give a shout-out to the Omaha kids who are balling out?
Yeah.
Not in the borders, but elsewhere, pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty damn good, man.
Which
good for the state.
Which fuels up the Fire Fred Hoiberg emails that have now started to roll into the
We're not there,
inbox.
Guys. He's doing a good job.
I know. Hey.
Still doing a really good job.
I'm not out to fire anybody.
He made a mistake, though. You got to call that timeout, Garrett. You got to call that timeout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a mistake.
Can't make those mistakes in a Bubblicious game on Wednesday night. I hope that's a promotion. I hope they give out gum. People still chew gum?
No.
People still buy gum that is not right next to the checkout? Do you seek out gum?
That's a great poll question. Do you seek out gum?
45 past the hour. Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620. All right, welcome back in. Evan Bland going to stop by at 8:30. Lots to discuss. Thomas Fedoni. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Got a Senior Bowl invite, which...
It's big for him.
If you are invited, and I think Mike McNeil got invited to the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl, and then Tracy Wistrom went there, and Wistrom is the last tight end in Nebraska to be drafted, and Fedoni putting his name in for the draft. But getting the I keep saying the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl invite, that's huge because if you are usually in that game, you're going to get drafted. A high percentage. I think almost half the guys, and maybe even more than half that play in that game, get drafted. That's a huge thing for Fedoni.
I love the Senior.
I surprised some people this weekend when that was announced by Jim Nagy.
He's a good, you turn on the tape, you can run routes. And you never really had an issue with Thomas dropping the ball. He was never really a drop. He was a pretty consistent pass catcher. And that's honestly what they look for in terms of tight ends in the NFL outside of blocking. Can you run the route correctly, and can you hold on to the football? That's really two of the biggest prerequisites. Now, he's got a lot of work to do.
Have to work on both of those consistently. He's got to work on his speed. He's got, and that's going to be tough with the knee injuries. And he's got to work on yards after catch, because that's the big glaring thing when you turn on the tape, is that the fact that he's not a type of tight end, when you make first contact, he can get 6-7 more yards from that. And that's a really hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. That's a very high bar. But what are we talking about here, Gare? We're talking about the NFL. We're talking about getting drafted. There are high standards. There are high bars. He's got work to do to get drafted. But when you just turn on the tape and you see the athleticism, he's got a lot of the tools there to be drafted in the NFL. That was huge to get a
massive
Senior Bowl invite.
It's almost like if he didn't get it, you're like, man, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle, because
that might parlay into a combine invite.
You hear stories of, people drafting and being like, well, I saw him at the Senior Bowl, or I saw him play at the Senior Bowl, or I saw him compete against, we were scouting this guy, we were looking to draft this guy, and at the Senior Bowl, he ended up playing really well against him, so we started looking at him.
Hell yes. Hope he does well.
Email to finish the hour. This is from Old Man Doug, who's probably not working today. Imagine the bank is closed on Martin Luther King Day.
You imagine?
Should we be talking more about Creighton's win or Nebraska's loss? We talked about Creighton's win first.
Yeah.
They both played this weekend.
We talked about them a little bit, pretty evenly, honestly.
If both Creighton and Nebraska win the rest of their home games, are they without winning any on the road, do they make the tournament? Nebraska would not.
I got to see what rank. I know they play. I want to be correct here in making sure that, because I'm pretty sure Nebraska does play a ranked team at home. So they would have to. So if they win the rest of their games, they would beat Illinois, they would beat Michigan, which would be 2 quad 1 wins. Mm-hmm. Those would be pretty big.
They got to win a game.
They got to win a game.
They got to do what they did last year.
Yeah, they got to win a game. They got to have that Indiana at Assembly Hall win at some point this season.
To Nebraska ball fans only, are you still saying Nebraska is a better team based only on the head-to-head matchup? It'd be like Creighton saying they are better than Kansas. I don't want people to forget that Nebraska won at Creighton this year.
At Creighton.
Remember that?
Not at PBA, at Creighton. They went into the house.
But it's a long season,
they won.
And right now Creighton is playing much better than Nebraska. If Fred wasn't such a likable guy, why should you, Gary, Matt, and others be more critical of his performance? The consistency isn't there. I like Fred. I think he's trying very hard, but is he better than what anyone expected at this point in the Nebraska coaching career? Which they're 5-42 on the road now as a Big Ten team.
I think Fred went into his coaching tenure here at Nebraska with, first off, the wrong assistant coaches and also just the wrong mindset of how to build a roster. I give him a ton of credit in the world for changing both of those. And since he's done that, he's found success.
Isn't Hoiberg and Rule in that sense kind of the same? They both came from the pros. They had been in college where they'd been successful, but last time they were in college looks entirely different.
It's very similar, eerily similar, and both have had to undergo major assistant coach and roster reconstruction. Now, Fred, granted, took him 3 years to get there. It's taken Matt just 1, so kudos to Rule, but it's 2 different sports. But yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, the similarities are very uncanny, and it also goes to show that, look, college basketball is college basketball and college football is college football, but it's a little bit different in Nebraska. It's a little bit of there's a curve in terms of recruiting, where you're at in the country, the type of talent you can get, how the athletic department is run in general, the expectations, the want, look, Baylor and Temple and Iowa State, the economic capacity of those cities aren't relying on how well you play, your sport. Now, more so football than basketball, right? But like Husker football does well. It means a lot more, a ton more than playing good football at Baylor and Temple. That's a little bit different of a learning curve, All
right, another one from Joey, and this is a good perspective because there's Omaha kids are balling out around the country, and St. Thomas from Millard North will be here on Wednesday night for USC, and he's having a good year. He's 11-6 guy, I believe. He says, for all the folks on the Fire Fred bandwagon, coinciding with the Omaha kids balling out across the country, folks need to remember that Fred busted his ass recruiting these kids, but some had other agendas that didn't fit his culture. The ugly conversation that a lot around here don't want to have is, unfortunately, some are realizing the business side of things nowadays. Some need to sit down with others and ask them their true experience right now as they're getting paid, because there are some experiences that I'm sure they've had that make them second guess their selection, basing off hype over fit. Yeah, that's true.
It happens. It's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. It's going to, in every sport, when you start prioritizing how much money you're going to be putting in your bank account and not actually like, how am I going to fit here? How am I going to live here? Do I get the best coaching here? Do I have the best recovery here? That's going to happen across the sport.
No,
across all sports.
With Nebraska basketball, it's a long season. I think any of the sweeping generalizations about Fred, let's see where they are in March. If the season goes south and they can't pull the parking brake, it's going to get uncomfortable around here.
Yeah. Look, if you lose out.
Yeah, it's going to be really uncomfortable.
It's going to get uncomfortable.
Well, and then you look towards next year and it gets really dicey.
Yes.
With what you're going to lose and what may or may not stay. So Wednesday night is the season.
That's the one thing.
Wednesday night's the season against USC, like we've been saying from day one.
That's the one problem with how they build their roster. Every offseason is the biggest offseason because you have so much to replace.
All right. Coming up in the next hour, Evan Bland will stop by. Let's talk some Ohio State and Notre Dame.
Heck yeah.
Where the Leprechaun is from Omaha, and there are 3 on the Notre Dame roster that are from Omaha. All coached by Paul Lamanji. He did not coach the Leprechaun from Creighton Prep. It's Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Is there a, it will not be U2. Is there a halftime performance tonight at the Ohio State Notre Dame game?
Oh, the Orange Bowl. Wait, it's not the Orange Bowl. What am I thinking of? Probably whatever ESPN
Like, is it going
wants.
to be like Killer Mike? Killer Mike and Run the Jewels?
Ooh.
Will they be performing at halftime
That
tonight?
would be nice. It'll probably be the change.
Of that
I'm
game?
looking it up right now.
Like, they have to have a halftime performance, right?
Run the Jewels would be fantastic.
All right, maybe it's this one.
That doesn't sound like ESPN.
So Coco Jones is an R&B
'Cause there's
artist. She's doing the national anthem.
I've heard of Lolo Jones.
Just stop showing the anthem. I mean,
Have the
we're
bands
now
do
in
it.
this country of fighting over if they show the anthem or not, and if it's a good anthem.
Mhm.
Just maybe let's don't show the anthem.
Let's have Chris Stapleton do it.
Not that I'm seeing right now that there's.
Okay.
Is there a halftime show for the national championship? Okay, here it is. No. It's just going to be
Kirk Herbstreit
Reese
and some
and
dogs.
Howard and Saban.
Singing,
Like not singing. They're just going to be on the.
Like in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I don't. Oh no. I don't.
doing
know,
Sinatra or some Frankie Valli.
See now I'm on market.com. One of the most. Is there a halftime show for the NCAA final? Unlike the Super, there are nope, no halftime show.
So the halftime might be the back of my eyelids, and like you did the other night. And then wake up, we're good for the second half. Let's go.
Yeah,
Last game of the year.
15-minute nap.
All right. Well, so it's an early kickoff at 6:30. By the way, the game got no buzz over the weekend. The NFL just swallowed it up. Like the networks, except for ESPN, they were really the only ones that were talking about the game being on Monday night in Atlanta. And you know, I mean, you have two major brands, Ohio State and Notre Dame. Major. I would think on a Monday night this is going to do big numbers.
Nothing else on.
But does it matter if it's a blowout tonight? So Ohio State is an 8.5-point favorite. Still blows me away that Florida State in the 94 Orange Bowl was a 16.5-point favorite on Nebraska. You know how that ended up? 18-16. 16.5-point favorite. Like I was looking at
I
some
didn't
of the
know that. Damn.
I was looking at some of the larger lines of national championship games, and the Florida State Nebraska one from the 94 Orange Bowl is right up there. 16.5.
I was.
Damn, I would have said
you-
3.5.
You're on a. I don't know. You're on the Average Joe sports show. That's the show that you do on Sundays. I was able to listen into it.
Why, thank you.
Over the weekend. It was great. You and a couple others, and you brought up an awesome story about how you were at the 1995 Florida. You had the Florida media was there, and you guys had a little banquet and everything like that. And you went out and you hung out with Florida, media members, and it was like a luncheon or whatever. And you're on the bus, and Florida media members thought that they were going to stop Nebraska. I wonder if that's the same thing with Ohio State and Notre Dame media members. I wonder if that's there's a similar contingency there of Ohio State, because that's always an interesting thing when you go to a joint media event and there are people. There's a little bit of you're professionals, you're doing work, you're reporting on the team, but there also is a little bit of pride in the team that you report on,
It's
right?
like West Side
I
Story.
wonder if that's the same thing, that maybe if Ohio State media members have their chest peacocked out a little bit, and if Notre Dame members are like, you know what, I don't think they understand how good of a team we actually are.
What's that, Paul?
I think that's when you said that story, you told that story about Florida, Nebraska, I immediately thought, I wonder if there's some similarities there happening now, because that's kind of what we're getting at. Like, there's a lot of smart money going in on Ohio State. I think that a lot of the big bettors in Vegas were kind of waiting for that number to drop down after originally was at 9.5 points. They were waiting. They knew that maybe the casual money would come in on Notre Dame because 9.5 is a lot. They let it drop down to 8, and then it got hammered. It got hammered again, and now it's popped back up to 8.5.
See,
What did Golick say about
I don't know.
teammate?
I think the game of football is pretty simple. Don't turn the ball over.
No. Yeah.
Blocking and tackling.
Run the ball. Throw the ball. Catch the ball. Tackle the ball. Be good in all three phases. Look at Notre Dame's good in all three phases. Ohio State is really, really good defensively. By the way, keep an eye on Jim Knowles to Oklahoma after this game.
Ooh.
Their defensive coordinator.
Okay.
You'll have both schools done this.
But you have the
resume.
two top scoring defenses that are playing.
Yes.
And then Ohio State has their offense. I look at this game and I say, if this game is a crisp game and there's not penalties, there's not turnovers, how does Ohio State not win? Because at the end of the day, you have to look at both of these rosters. And unfortunately, Notre Dame has been hit by injuries, and especially on the offensive line in this, this is a war of attrition when you're playing 16, 17 games, can't you just say the team with the better talent's going to win? If it's a crisp game, team with the better talent's going to win. Ohio State is at least 8.5 points better than Notre Dame.
So I got to be careful how I word this here, and I don't want to get too in the weeds, and maybe this will be a little bit tough to follow along. I don't love the word the better team is going to win. The team with the better players is going to win. I don't necessarily love the whole talent is going to win out, because I feel like we talk about talent as if it's an inherited thing that you just have and you're just born with. These guys are talented, but they get better. They're talented because they're good. They're talented because they put the work in. That's not a you thing or anything thing. That's just a word thing in my regard. I just think that, Ohio State has the better talent because they have great athletes, but they've also worked really hard to get to their point and to be the better players. The team with the better players is going to win. That's the same thing what you said, just a word thing. I totally agree with you. At the end of the day, whoever is better, especially in these big games, are going to win as long as they show up. There's a reason we play these games, because you know what? There is a chance tonight that Will Howard steps out in the field and he just doesn't have it tonight. There is a chance that Jeremiah Smith steps out in the field and has the same performance he did against Texas, which is 1 reception for 3 yards, right? That could happen tonight.
Continue to play man against him.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a mistake.
I mean, Michigan and Texas really don't play man. They play more zone, so it made sense. But Notre Dame, with their good defensive backs, they say they're going to play man. It's not just him.
But you bring up great defenses. They both have top defenses, but one defense has to deal with a hell of a lot more than the other defense. Notre Dame has a much bigger challenge in stopping Ohio State than Ohio State does having stopping Notre Dame. Notre Dame has to do so much more. They have to prepare for so many more options, so much more talent, so many more big plays. Ohio State can have a simpler game plan. They can have a more direct forward game plan where there's less variable. There's way more variable on the offensive end for Ohio State than there is Notre Dame, and which is why, confident Ohio State's going to win the game. But at the end of the day, like, Notre Dame's a team, man. Marcus Freeman's a great coach. Their special teams is legit. Their special teams changes games.
When I look at this, and really there's only one time all year that Ohio State has beaten themselves, and that was Michigan. They got beat by Oregon. They ran out of time at the end of the game. But Michigan, they weren't themselves. See, that's why I say football is simple. Don't overthink things. Who are your identity? Look at the Eagles last night. The Eagles want to throw the ball all over the place. And Kellen Moore had a bad day.
He did.
Should make you feel real comfortable, Jimmy.
Absolutely.
You've got the long drought of the Cowboys, have the longest drought of not making the NFC Championship
all
game.
Of them.
And there are 7 assistants off the Cowboys staff in 22 and 23 that will be coaching the NFC Championship game. But, it's not like the Cowboys and the Giants caught a ton of strays yesterday.
No, not at all. Not remotely. Shoot.
But don't overthink it.
That's one word.
Ohio State overthought who they were. They got away from their identity against Michigan and came back to bite them. It's the only time all year that they have beaten themselves. And I still look at Ohio State and I go, the only team that can beat Ohio State is themselves. Because if they turn the ball over, Notre Dame is great. They've scored 140 points off turnovers. They win the middle 8.
Yes.
They're a well-coached, well-organized team. But at the end of the day, to me, talent wins out, and Ohio State is who we thought Ohio State was way back in August. The best team in college football, and tonight they will be the best team in college football in Atlanta against Notre Dame. It'll be great for Ryan Day, be uncomfortable for some. There'll be receipts that are kept, and it'll be great for the Big Ten because the Big Ten needs Ohio State to finish this to win 2 straight national titles.
I want to pivot here real quick because we broke down this game pretty well. They're both incredibly talented teams, both incredibly talented on defense. Ohio State has a major advantage on the offensive end. Notre Dame will be fighting an uphill battle. But, you could argue that they've fought uphill battles a lot this year, and they've been able to get the wins, and they're well coached, they're ready, and this is a big opportunity for them and for their university they're very proud of. Okay, so let's pivot here. I want to talk big picture. Let's say, and this is more so an Ohio State conversation than this is a Notre Dame conversation. Let's say Ohio State wins the national championship today.
Yes. The rebranding of Ryan Day.
They win the national championship, and they do it in dominant fashion. They kick the crap out of Tennessee. They kick the crap out of Oregon. They play a really great game against Texas where they just absolutely would not be denied. They win tonight. Where do we talk about them? How do we talk about them in the macro scope of college football? Because this team has played at the level of an all-time team in this playoff run. They have played at an incredibly high level. They've looked like the best team in the nation from the first game, and let's say they win tonight, they'll be crowned the best team in the nation. But when you look at all the other national champions in the past, they wouldn't have made the 4-team college football playoff.
Correct.
They wouldn't have made the BCS. If we were still in a 1-2 BCS era, they wouldn't have made that. Even if you go back all the way to the 90s, before there was a BCS, before there was a playoff, despite the fact could be playing the best football in the country, they wouldn't be crowned national champions. It's going to be a little bit of a weird thing now with the 12-team college football playoff on how we judge these teams to past teams, because Ohio State a year ago would not have won a national championship, and it has nothing to do with their level of play or how they are as a team. It just has everything to do with the system. How do we judge that now? Because this year, let's say we were still in the BCS. We didn't have a 4-team college football playoff. The national championship game would have been Oregon versus Georgia. One of those two teams would have been crowned the national champions. And one of them got run out of the building by Ohio State, and the other one got dominated, didn't win by many points, but got systematically controlled by Notre Dame. It's a weird time a little bit now with this 12-team playoff. How do we, because I love this, because I'm a sport nerd. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about hypotheticals that we will never find out. That's the beauty of sports broadcasting.
So what you're saying, I say the college football playoff is a success.
Absolutely.
Year one, it's success. They got some tweaks to it. But I think it's what you're saying. It allowed Ohio State to have a loss, but then found the team that was playing either the best all season long or got on a heater.
Yes.
And allowed them to be in the tournament. And then once they're in the tournament, that's on you.
Now, we're going to have a little bit of an uncomfortable conversations with some past champions as well. Now, there's no uncomfortable conversations about 1995 Nebraska, 2001 Miami, 2019 LSU. You know where they stand. You know they were the best team. They were the best team all year. No one's denying that. But there are some other, you can now go back. You can play this both ways. You can question the validity of Ohio State as a national champion on a macro scale because of the fact that they had 2 losses, and in the past that couldn't happen.
I would take the 2014 national championship team for Ohio State over this one.
Yeah.
If they win tonight.
That's fine.
Tougher schedule.
Absolutely. And it's harder. It was harder. Now, that's the one thing, too. What's harder? To win a national championship and you only can have one regular season loss and you have to be almost damn perfect to get there? Or it's not like Ohio State has had they've played 16 games. They've had to play a good Tennessee team, a great Texas team. They're going to have to play a really, really good, great even Notre Dame team in order to win a national championship. I mean, it's just so interesting conversations and ways you can flip it and talk about it, because it's you watch this team play, Ohio State, and you're like, man, this is a all-time team, the way that they're playing now. But then you look at their previous resume and everything like that, and a year ago, the fact that they wouldn't even be there to win the national champion, it's absolutely, it's so fascinating to me. It's so interesting.
I think Jim Harbaugh
combos.
winning the national championship last year is greater than Ohio State winning the national championship this year.
Why? I'm not disagreeing. I'm just why? Why do you think that?
I mean, look who he carried. He at one point had Cade McNamara through his build-up to win the national championship last year. Josh Gaddis. By the way, Cade McNamara at East Tennessee State. I think what Harbaugh did last year with all the distractions that could have derailed them, and yet they stayed the course, and your favorite quarterback won a national championship, J.J. McCarthy.
I don't have any hate toward JJ.
I feel like you had hate last week about him after.
Oh, I was just defending
Sam
Sam Darnold. I was just defending Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold had a hell of a year, and somehow he's still in the same position he was a year ago.
How we look at teams is going to be different, yes.
Yeah.
Because now it becomes the survival of the fittest. Like the 14 Ohio State team, they beat number 1 Alabama, and then they turned around and they beat number 2 Oregon. So they played in the Sugar Bowl, and then they turned around and that game, Jimmy, was that game at AT&T? Yeah, because Ezekiel Elliott got the Cowboys. But through all of this,
Miller,
it says to me
Elliott,
that it was the college football playoff in year 1 was a success,
without a doubt.
And I hope they tweak it. I would love to see it on ABC. I'd like to see a simulcast. I think that the sport is going to change because of the NFL and their tie into the playoff. Look at it this way. So we know that 18 games are coming in the NFL. So what they're not adding on the back end, they're going to add on the front end.
They're going to take Labor Day
and
back.
They're going to take Labor Day back.
Yeah.
So college football has had that one opening weekend where they have no competition.
They're going to need to go a week earlier then.
College football is going to have to start earlier, which are we opposed to?
No.
No. I think because
Honestly,
Week 0 is August 23rd.
because
this
you're going to get pushed aside by the NFL's opening weekend. So you're going to start earlier, but this is what I hope happens. We figure out a way to drop the conference championship games. Now, I don't want the silver medal competition that the ACC proposed yesterday. I mean, that conference is a disaster.
Such a disaster.
But we can't have college football ending on January 20th.
No.
If we could have
No.
the semifinals on New Year's Day and a week later. So when Ohio State won the national championship, they played on New Year's Day. That was the semifinals. The championship was on the 12th.
Yeah. The +1 game that they had
Now,
before in the BCS was a week
yeah,
later.
I don't think we're going to get to the point where the college football season ends on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
But I think we need to get to where the semifinals are on New Year's Day. But looking at the calendar, like just the calendar of life and what the NFL is going to do, in 2026, when the Big Ten and the SEC have more of a say in the college football playoff, you might have, because of the way the calendar works in 2026, you could have, I wrote this down, semifinals could be played on Mondays and Tuesdays and
Okay.
a final on a Thursday or Friday because of the calendar and not wanting to go up against the NFL. So
Friday night.
my wish, if you're going to keep the calendar like it is, and I know Monday is a good spot because a lot of people are home, they're going to watch tonight, but still college football to me is Saturday. Do you think in a world that the NFL would ever play along on divisional round weekend where they have one game on Saturday that leads into the national championship game and 3 games on Sunday because they love, I mean, look at yesterday's staggered start times and the staggered start times coming up
I
for
love
the championship games.
love the 5:30 start.
2 and 5:30.
I'd go an hour early.
I like that. I like the 5:30 start a ton. So I'll say this. So actually, Caleb and I talked about it on Thursday, I think, that it just irked me that, Saturday is college football. Saturday is college football's day. I associate Saturdays with college football. And the fact that the final isn't played on a Saturday, I understand why it's not, but it just irks me a little bit. And then we talked
You're not
about,
alone.
and then we talked about, look, like, why couldn't you put it on a Friday? Now I understand, like putting it on a Friday would have been great because you're going into the weekend. Oh my God, I get to have a couple beers tonight, go to a sports bar, put people together. It's a great time. Now it's on a Monday, you can't really have that college football playoff party really because everybody's got work the next day. But I just think like we're talking about the schedules and whatnot, and like it's interesting to me because I compare the NFL to like a poker player with a lot of chips right now, and way more chips than anyone else on the table. And if you've ever played poker and you know that you have a chip advantage, it doesn't really necessarily matter about your hands anymore. And what it matters is about pushing people out and making them, hey, if you're going to go all in, if you're going to bet this hand here, you better have it, And it makes people second guess what they're doing at the poker table because it's like, man, if this is a really big hand and I'm running out of chips and the NFL, the poker player with a lot of chips can take the loss, but I can't. It's interesting that the NFL is taking that strategy over these last couple of years because they know that they have America. They know that they have the popularity of everyone in their hand. And now they're taking over Christmas. They're taking over. You're playing games on Thursday or Wednesdays, and you're playing games on Tuesdays, and you're playing games on Fridays.
This
And
is COVID's fault.
You got all this. You got all these. They know that they can do whatever they want. And now they're taking, they've had Saturdays in the playoffs before, but now they're taking the week before college. That was college football's week. They're taking things from other sports and other places. And it's interesting to me that they're doing it to college football because I feel like the NFL has been boosted by the fact that college football is so popular. And it's almost as if the popularity of the NBA has faltered a bit because you don't have these built-in superstars from college basketball, then now you get to watch your favorite player in the NBA. That doesn't exist. It exists in college football. We love watching these guys grow in front of our eyes, and we relate to them, and we root for them. And then they go to the NFL, and you're like, man, I want to watch Irving Fryer play for the New England Patriots. I'm a Patriots fan now.
Nice.
Like that's what we do. Like that's the built-in advantage that the NFL has from the NCAA being so popular. It just surprises me that they're now pushing their chips to the table, and they're now competing with them at the poker table, because I feel
Why?
like even if they want to admit it or not, it's a symbiotic relationship.
Nah, not really.
Well, it's a good relationship for them.
The
for
only
the
relationship
NFL.
they have with college football is your high school class has to be out 3 years. The NFL knows they can do whatever they want.
No, I know, but don't you think
They're not going to change.
No, I know, but it's interesting to me because the NFL, in a way, does benefit from the fact that
It
college
does.
football
It
builds
provides
stars.
them with players.
Yes. It benefits from that.
Man, Irving Fryer. I think of Sugar Bear Hamilton now. Yeah.
But they're at the point now they can do whatever they want. You know what? If they can do that, they can do it.
18 games, 2 bye weeks. They're not going to push the season further back.
Super Bowl in April.
Here we go. I mean, Labor Day weekend could be a hell of a weekend for football.
Yes.
But
It always used to be.
But college football can't get lost. So you move up the season a week, and that's your big opening week. But remember, if that's your opening week, a lot of schools, week 2 is when they have monster games. I mean, it'd be great to have, we could say as a consumer, man, this is great to have all this football.
Monday afternoon, Labor Day football for college. A little extra.
Where are we at now, like with
Omaha?
Do you think they would ever change the academic calendar for college football? That's an honest conversation.
To move up the school year?
Maybe start the week like the
That'll go
school
over
year
well
a
with
week
the
earlier.
nerds.
And then like move up the breaks and do something with the breaks, and then that way enroll and maybe push enrollment back a bit. I don't know.
Ask the students. You want to go to school earlier?
Who's your chancellor? Who's your president?
Yeah.
Are they football fans?
I don't know. I mean, so if you're moving up the season a week earlier, that means that students get to school and then that week or that like
Which has happened before.
Yeah. But it's almost as if, I mean, they could get to the point where there's a college football game before school even starts.
Places that are on the trimester, that happens.
That
a lot.
happens,
Like
yeah.
you might be playing, like have 3 or 4 games played before students show up.
Fair enough.
Evan Bland will stop by here in a little bit. We'll get his thoughts on what's going to happen tonight. Where if you like the NFL draft, I know you do.
Love it.
Of the top 10 players eligible for the NFL draft, 8 of them are on one side. One of the guys that is not, Xavier Watts, hasn't given up a touchdown pass in 478 snaps.
He's a player, man.
Paul Lamanji going to have a big night tonight. He coached X-Man at Burke, the Rezac twins at Westside. Did not coach the Leprechaun from Creighton Prep, who, after we mentioned him on the show last week, getting some love. I saw he's doing some interviews.
Cubs missed out on Tanner Scott. Apparently they gave him a big offer. He went to LA instead.
It took him a while to get to 4 years. He wanted 4 years. They did 4 years, $66 million. He went to the Dodgers, 4 years, $72 million. Nice global destination and a brand they have there in Los Angeles,
Yeah,
right?
must be nice.
All right. Evan Bland joins us next. All right, we are down to 4 major football games until August. College football done after tonight. It's Notre Dame and Ohio State. It's Evan Bland of the World Herald. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Tonight's game in Atlanta. What's the impact from Nebraska's perspective, if Ohio State and the Big Ten win a national title? Anything?
I can't think of anything obvious. I mean, if they're carrying the flag for the Big Ten, I suppose that's always a good thing. It's another sign that the Big Ten has the resources, the exposure, the TV deals, and it wouldn't hurt to keep the national championship in the league. So I think you probably start there. I don't know how much of a shock it would be necessarily that Ohio State wins the championship. Broadly speaking, I know they're a favorite in this game, probably a big favorite, but they have a $20 million roster. That's kind of out there. They have most of the best players, it seems like, in this game. So I guess what it says is Nebraska had a lead in the fourth quarter against the national champions in Columbus. That's pretty cool, and something I think that we've kind of talked about, or I've talked about with my colleagues, has been sometimes the difference when you have as much talent as Ohio State does. It doesn't always show up as much in these big games as it does throughout the course of the regular season, when you maybe aren't at your sharpest mentally, or you're not in the best possible headspace, but you still have the best guys. And sometimes that's what puts you over the top. And it felt kind of thinking back to that game, that's kind of what it was, where Nebraska, played pretty well. Ohio State was going through some things at that time, but they still had some of the best wide receivers in college football, and that made the difference in the outcome of that game. So, I guess it would say that if you're Nebraska and you're evaluating your season, like, that's the margin from making a CFP run and being in the title to finishing, just above 500 in Yankee Stadium. I mean, sometimes it can come down to a drive or two, and I mean, how thin is that gap that everyone's trying to traverse at this point in college football?
Evan, I'm going to give you a sentence. I want you to finish it. The first 12-team college football playoff was blank.
Eventually exciting. I think the first round was largely a dud, but I thought the semifinals were compelling. I think this championship game has a chance to be compelling. The conversation kind of felt like has quieted about reseeding the structure of the format. And I think that's the right move. We saw it play out one year, like, let this thing go a little bit longer before you make kind of these sweeping changes to the thing. But yeah, I thought the first few games, first round, wasn't all that exciting. They went up against the NFL, on the first playoff weekend for the NFL. Then that didn't go great for the CFP, but I just thought it got a lot more exciting toward the end. You saw brand names, you saw good teams rise to the top. I mean, this particular matchup with Notre Dame and Ohio State, I mean, these teams wouldn't, based on the regular seasons they had, would not have sniffed a 4-team playoff under the previous format. So, like, I think it's fun that this format allows for teams to stub their toe a little bit, but still go on heaters and eventually finish at the top of the heap. So, yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. More football is always better than less football, and there's probably going to be some tweaks that you have to figure out down the line. But I think it's been largely very entertaining, and anything that can happen to take the focus off, even briefly, the off-the-field stuff in college athletics with all the changing legislation, that's a win, and I think this format and this tournament's provided that.
Let's go with the on the field, because On3 just released their way too early college football top 25. Nebraska is 25th.
Ooh.
Texas 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Penn State is 4, Notre Dame is 5th. So let's bring it to what will take the field in 25. But news yesterday, and you got to realize the timing. I mean, we're all watching Nebraska basketball, trying to make a rally against Maryland, and all of a sudden it drops that a offensive lineman is going to Kentucky. More of a surprise to you that he chose Kentucky over Michigan, or Kentucky over what I think was a very aggressive offer by Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know kind of the financial aspect of it, I guess it sounds like it was fairly even for those offers throughout. I don't know. Like sometimes there are personal connections. I don't know that there was one with Shiaz Pete in this particular case. Maybe maybe it's a case of Kentucky wanting a little revenge for losing out on Dane Key and Hardly Gilmore and its position coach, and they got Dante Dowdell. So it is kind of interesting that there's been like this little portal recruiting rivalry that's heated up between Nebraska and Kentucky. But I don't know. Like I looked into Shiaz Pete a little bit, and his story is really interesting as a guy who was a total non-prospect and is of Native American origin, and just his ascent is really fascinating. So I don't know why it would be Kentucky, other than it's the SEC. It's life-changing money, that sort of thing. And that was sort of Nebraska's last major portal target that they were looking at. And so, now they can reset and look forward to that spring window in April and see how that shakes out after spring ball and all the rest. But, I think that was just kind of that moment was what Nebraska clearly wants another tackle. Pete would have fit that bill. It sounds like they bid accordingly and have been bid aggressively for his services, and he ultimately chose to go somewhere else. So I think you put a pin in that thing and you say, how does that position develop in spring? Who becomes available on the market in April and potentially into the summer? And you got to imagine that's an area that Nebraska is not finished looking at just yet.
Evan, looking at this way too early, college football top 25. Now, granted, there are going to be some spring transfers, and you never know about injuries. But for the most part, Nebraska, if they don't start the year ranked, they're going to be pretty damn close to doing that. If you're looking at their schedule for the 2025 season, only 2 teams are going to be ranked to begin the year. That's Penn State and Michigan. Is it unfair to say that anything less than 9 wins in 2025 is a disappointment for this team?
Well, I mean, yeah, probably,
okay.
But that's been that way for the last 8 to 10 years.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been annual disappointment. What's interesting to me about that ranking is it brings back shades of 2019.
Yeah,
where it's a very similar situation where 2018 Nebraska got a freshman quarterback, Adrian Martinez, who finished strong, who was a dark horse Heisman candidate, and the rest of the team was okay, and they got a little bit better in some spots. But I think there was a sense at that time that maybe Nebraska doesn't deserve to be in the top 25 just yet. That was one of those rare years where I think the local outlook was less optimistic than the national outlook, and so people were excited about that team. And I think you have a little bit of that here, where it's the same deal, where you have a talented freshman quarterback who got better as the year went on, and it's what I think is interesting in this portal era is. It used to be you could kind of tell the teams that were on the rise because this core group of players was getting older and maybe they had some success and they were getting ready to take the next step. And I think what that's become now is since you don't have that broadly across the team because of the portal, it's become that with quarterbacks. So, which quarterback had a good year is coming back, has a chance to be better. And I think Nebraska clearly fits that description. And so in the absence of certainty or more evidence with a lot of these teams who are going to be starting transfers and new signal callers and all the rest, like Nebraska is an option for that. So, yeah, I could see why nationally you look at that and say top 25. But obviously you can make a case why they shouldn't be there pretty easily too. New coordinators across the board and a reshuffled offensive line, like we just talked about, that's not an area that they're settled on. The defense is going to look a lot different. So interesting that they are drawing national attention and optimism in that way. But I think that's what it comes down to is this is a story about the quarterback, and do you believe that he can take that step, and that there are the skill guys and the protection around him where Nebraska can take that next step too.
Yeah, looking at these 25, it's also interesting because half of them, maybe even a little bit more than half, will have new quarterbacks.
Yeah, good point.
5 of the top 10, Nebraska, of course, will have a returning quarterback. Let me shift to a couple of different position groups because as now we're done with this kind of portal time. I mean, guys could leave because school starts back up on Tuesday. Some guys may not come back that were maybe walk-on, so you start whittling down the roster, which is at 130 now, which Sam documented today. I'm going to give you the option in the spring, and you're going to be the only journalist because we like Evan.
Yes.
You're going to get to go to every practice, but you have to pick one position group that you're going to hang out with the entire practice. Ooh. Are you more interested in watching the wide receivers or the defensive backs this spring?
Wide receivers, I think. I mean, defensive back, there's so many guys in that room. That's the obvious spot that you look at and say there's going to be a number of trimmings that come from there, especially when you get back Deshaun Singleton in that mix. That's just a spot where they took a lot of young guys, and they still have a lot of returners there and all the rest. But yeah, I think I would start in the receiver group. I want to watch and see what Ja'Cory Barney looks like with another year of strength training and some experience under his belt. I want to see how Dane Key becomes a leader and puts himself in that mix as maybe Nebraska's next transfer receiver leader, like they've had now for 4 years running. I want to see Hartley Gilmore and what his potential could be, and Isaiah Hunter, who's on campus and has been a playmaker at Cal, and just kind of down the line. Like, I think that's a fascinating group. I want to see Da'Keil Shorts in his element and how he coaches as a former player and somebody who's, I think pretty articulate. How does that compare to what Nebraska has done at that position previously? I just think that's a spot where there's production that they've added, there's potential that they've added. You've got all kind of different body shapes. You got some taller guys with a good catch radius. You have a few burners. How does that all come together? Because I mean, outside of Barney, we really don't know necessarily what that's going to look like. So I think that'll be a really interesting spot as they kind of figure out roles, what guys are good at, start to establish some kind of a pecking order. Whereas I think in the secondary, you have a pretty good sense, okay, it's going to be Sear Wright on one side. You're probably going to have Singleton back there. You're probably going to have Marquise Buford back there. But what does that second corner spot look like? Is that the Idaho transfer? Is that, what about Donovan Jones? How does he emerge after the Pinstripe Bowl? So there are certainly, I think, interesting storylines there too, but just give me that wide receiver group based on that interesting mix of production and potential.
Evan, we'll go back to this kind of comparing rooms game because I really do like it. You have two rooms on the offensive end where there's some production there, but then there's also optimism in terms of younger guys and their ability to perform. You have the running back room where you have Emmett Johnson. You've seen what he's done under Dana Holgorsen, and then you got Quinn Ives and Parker and Booth, and you're kind of wondering who's going to emerge as that second guy under Johnson within that group, and even if Johnson is number one. And then you got the tight end room where you have Luke Lindenmeyer, but then after that, you're wondering, well, okay, Heinrich Haarberg makes a transition. Carter Nelson, is he ready to take that next step after playing his freshman year? What room would you, at this point, be more confident in? Would you be more confident in the tight end room to perform or the running back room to perform?
I think I would say that the tight end room, and some of that's history in the last, again, 8 to 10 years. And I mean, Nebraska running backs have just not consistently shown they can do it. Some of that's maybe a reflection of what the offensive line could look like. But I think the tight end room is really fascinating. We saw Luke Lindenmeyer in the pinstripe, and kind of maybe this idea that he's been one of Nebraska's better tight ends, and we just haven't known it over the last year or so. Haarberg, he's transitioning, but I mean, we know the physical measurables are there. He's one of the fastest, most explosive physical guys on the team. That's been the case for years. We saw a little bit of that in New York as well. It sounds like Carter Nelson maybe is making that transition this year, and there's a reason why he had, almost 50 FBS offers coming out of high school in Ainsworth, Nebraska. Like, just an explosive athlete. We saw just a tiny flash of that. What can that look like under Dana Holgorsen? So I think that's a really interesting room, and Nebraska thinks it's going to be a good room because they didn't have any tight end visitors in from the portal. So I think that's the other interesting part, is you can really tell what a team thinks based on the guys they bring in. So I think they feel good about that room. Interestingly, they also didn't bring in a running back among those portal visitors. So they do feel good about that room. You retain Emmett Johnson. That seems like the guy who can catch the ball, who's maybe the most versatile offensive weapon. What I'll be curious about is if they feel like a short yardage back emerges, the Dante Dowdell rule from last year. I don't know that it's obvious that guy's on the roster. Maybe he is, but Ives has been somebody that the staff has talked about for a long time. Does he take that next step?
Mm-hmm.
I think Jamarian Parker, to me, like he's on the short list of freshmen that are coming in that could make a quick impact. It's a position that's the case. He was under recruited because he didn't play as a sophomore in high school because of a tragedy with his friend.
Yeah.
So like there's just all kinds of, I think, intrigue there. But just based on sort of the potential of things, I think tight end has a chance to be just as good as it's been, even with some names who are maybe not quite as household among Nebraska fans.
I agree. Evan, as always, we appreciate it. Have a good week, maybe a quiet week as well.
Sounds great. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Evan.
Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald. Vince Morrow with a bag. Kentucky people that, through this whole weird connection between Nebraska and Kentucky that I've got to know, they put the number at 2 million. Now, I know that when he showed up, he wanted 7 figures.
For Pete?
Yeah.
What?
People at Kentucky that cover Wildcat football believe that it's in the $2 million range.
Oh, my God.
Just give him a quarter horse and turn around and sell it.
I mean, I get it because, I mean, it's hard. You don't find 6'8", 300-pound dudes just walking around. Okay, that's the thing about offensive linemen. Why they're so valuable. They just don't make humans like that. There's not a lot of people who are that big and that strong and that agile. But 2 million. Like my heart is kind of pounding right now thinking about that.
Could be the coffee.
A New Mexico State offensive lineman. I mean, not to whittle down on him or get on him or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. Nebraska wanted him, and I wanted him to play for Nebraska. I mean, it's a valuable get. But I'm telling you right now, if you're a bigger guy, if you're a taller dude, and you just had a boy or you just had a kid, and you're like, man, let's start doing the offensive lineman drills right now. Let's start doing the 2-point stance. Let's start doing the shuffle. Let's start doing the agility.
Or start throwing the ball.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. Man, good for the big boys. Good for the big uglies getting paid. I mean, the world has come to. The world is right again.
We'll pay debt to Jacob Bigelow. He'll join us coming up after 9 with thoughts on some hoops. He had a busy week. He was all over the place watching basketball.
I know. I was at it. I was at a game with him.
I imagine that Nebraska and Michigan were started with a 1 in their pursuit of Pete.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. But hey, Kentucky, a little Kentucky rivalry. Nothing bad with a little Kentucky rivalry.
There's a lot of Vince Morrow in there.
Yeah.
Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right. Did you guys miss TikTok?
I don't have it, but
I was getting updates for my wife when it went away. When it came, actually, we were watching football when it went away.
So it was the absence of TikTok was not as long as the Kim Kardashian Chris Humphries marriage, but it came back yesterday. Actually, during the Nebraska game, Nebraska played so well in the first half against Maryland on a 3-game losing streak that they decided the Chinese were having a good time watching Nebraska and Maryland basketball play. And they said, you know what, let's bring back TikTok. So TikTok is back for a little bit. It was dark for 12 hours.
What'd you do? Sad?
I went on Reddit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Reddit's awesome. I love Reddit.
You want to know how your life is formed? You're on TikTok and Reddit. And people's minds are blown.
If you're on TikTok and Reddit, you are the most in-touch, smartest human ever.
Now, I don't make any money off of TikTok, but I know plenty of people, especially here in Omaha, that do and do well.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you got to have a TikToker and you got to have an OnlyFans. If you're doing that, man, the more likely you're retired at like a young age.
Matt,
and you can go. And you can cross promote.
I'm good, man. I'm okay.
I hope you don't. I hope you don't go there.
Cross promote. I will say this. Look, Gen Z guy, but this is like the 60-year-old me that just came out with these people on Instagram who were like, "Thank you, TikTok," and then posting a bunch of like their favorite TikTok moments, like they were a relative that passed away.
Oh yes, like their greatest hits. I did see that.
Like,
well, there was a moment there where we were like,
it was embarrassing.
The only good thing about TikTok being gone was Jackson Mahomes was off. But go ahead.
It was like
he did a goodbye.
Yeah, it's like they were mourning. Oh my God, this app. Oh my God, what's gonna happen? Guys, just get a VPN. All right, like, gonna be fine. Like it's not. It was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
It's just like the NFL. The NFL.
It was an app. It was an app. There's more apps.
They have a grip on us.
Do you know how many more apps there are? TikTok will go away. Something better will come back.
Instagram Reels sucks.
Instagram Reels is fun.
Instagram
Reels
it can't hold TikTok's jock.
Instagram Reels is more about the comments. It's more about the comments section.
You get comments on TikTok.
No, but the comment section in Instagram is actually like so funny.
TikTok
and it's
comments.
like part of the allure of being on Reels. It's like, oh, I want because people just say the craziest, most unfiltered stuff.
I mean,
that is true.
TikTok might be,
and it's funny.
I mean, TikTok's got some power, man. They were in a timeout. They came out, and boom, we're back.
Yeah, they went
I got no problem with
we had
people
hostages being released yesterday. TikTok came back. I mean, the world is healing.
I got no problem with people enjoying an app. I just have people a problem with people mourning the app like they lost like their grandmother.
Now, some of them do make pretty good money.
No, but like, okay, sure. If you're mourning a profession, I get that. But like, if you
just kind of push that to the side.
Yeah, if you're mourning losing your job, okay.
I think the longer you're in this business, we all do it several times.
22-year-old who just makes these dumb TikToks that I never watch anyway, that I don't even think are funny. Get out of here. Thank you, TikTok. Thank you.
Says somebody that doesn't have TikTok and doesn't get to enjoy TikTok while you're laying in bed.
I like Instagram Reels and YouTube.
Hey, what am I going to do while I'm going to the bathroom in the morning? I'm so good
at the paper. You used to read the OWH at the paper in the morning, you know?
Yeah, like 15 years ago.
Yeah, why not? Bring it back.
No.
Old school's new school.
I'll go bankrupt.
Do they even make papers?
I'll go bankrupt.
Is there still like a physical paper?
Yeah, there is. Oh, yeah. But it's expensive. I read it. I read it online.
The last time we had the Sun Times delivered to the house was 2016, and I remember that because the last paper we got, or one of the last papers we got, was the Cubs winning the World Series.
Boom.
And then we hung them up.
So what am I going to do? TikTok is back, so I'm able to sit on the throne and be excited because I am so good at Immaculate Grid. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
So then I can shift to TikTok. I got an ethical question, though, that I heard on my way into work.
Give it to me. I love this.
I listen to music when I come in.
Okay.
Should I? It is not Sweet 98. So are you familiar with, speaking of TikTok, Kesha's song?
Very much so.
Timber?
You don't want to wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy.
The morning feeling like P. Diddy.
Yeah.
So that aired on a station I was listening today.
City.
Should I reach out to him and say, you may want to take that off your playlist? Now, I think she was going to redo that. But yeah, it's wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy.
I think it's a part of history.
What up, girl?
I think it's part of history now. I think it's part of history. No, it is. Because you get to see the downfall that like this guy, like everyone liked him and they thought he was great. And you even had artists with popular songs saying, oh, I woke up in the morning feeling like this guy. And little did they know.
You should go back. Dave Chappelle, who went a lot of different places. He was Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live because he hosted.
Yeah.
He's got to be one of the rare guys they would allow just to rip heaters because he's doing his monologue and he's talking about Trump and he's talking about P. Diddy. And he's talking about some other things. But yeah, he's smoking. He's got to be one of the rare hosts that they would just let rip heaters.
It's like the 70s
but
again.
he gets into a whole thing about P. Diddy that I think you would be entertained.
I didn't see the monologue yet. But you know Dan Soder? Dan Soder is so Katie Nolan, you know,
He's no
yeah,
Dan Campanella.
So she is, so that's her husband. Dan Soder or Soder. I think I call him Soder. He's a comedian, super funny guy. He does like the best Dave Chappelle like impersonations ever. Oh my god, I can watch Chappelle all day. It's just I love the thing about
Bring
Chappelle,
back the Dave Chappelle show.
The thing about Dave Chappelle
And that's the main
is that
takeaway
he
from
will
this
be
segment.
serious. He will tell you an actual, honest, educational story, right? And then all of a sudden, he just hits you, and it's like a joke, and you're laughing again. But there's a lot of pull there. Is there more? I gotta watch that. P. Diddy though. I mean, it's
Well,
what are you
I'm-
watching?
so I'm
What are you
watching,
looking at?
They're doing selfies.
The
Or
Trumps and the
pictures.
Bidens are meeting, but they're showing somebody that is not that important, and the camera is fixated on him.
They're
the
doing it
guy's
for the gram.
The guy's taking selfies, and I don't think I don't recognize him. So
Look at those ear warmers on those.
It's cold, bro.
No, I know, but those
It's
are
cold.
big ear warmers. Those are like industrial.
You know what
ear
they say
warmers.
about big ear warmers?
What? What do
Big
they say?
ears.
Big ears.
I have massive ears. Yankees and Reds. Name a player.
Like the 76 series?
Like
a player. Yankees and Reds.
Hal
Of
Morris?
Any. It's immaculate grid.
Hal Morris.
Al.
Hal Morris.
Loved Hal Morris.
Jacob
Yes.
Bigelow is going to join us next.
One
All right, wake up in the morning, feel like you need some Gary and Matt in your life.
Ooh.
That should be our new promo.
Who would be the replacement for P. Diddy? Like, who is it good to wake up in the morning like nowadays? I mean, everybody's getting canceled. Who are the
Herb
candidates?
Alpert.
Wake up in the morning feeling like Chris Fowler. That rings.
He doesn't sing, though.
Wake up in the morning feeling like Kirk Herbstreit. I got my jacket on. I'm gonna talk about the SEC. No run there.
Probably
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Probably not.
I know it's a bad radio sentence when Gary gets really quiet into the microphone and starts whispering. Yeah, probably not.
Because I think
welcome to ASMR.
like what would you ever think that Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit would go baby oil with you?
It's an honest question.
No. Who is a celebrity that would go that you could put in there that would go
Nope.
baby oil?
Not
Kim
gonna do it.
Kardashian.
Not going to do it. How many people also like one of the things Chappelle was saying in his monologue on Saturday Night Live is like, how many people finish a bottle of baby oil in their lifetime?
Oh, that's a great question. What would one even use it for? Just like exfoliation or like?
Oiling babies, obviously.
I'm here to listen. Oh, you got experience or?
No, I
Oh,
don't.
okay.
I don't think I've ever used I've used like coconut oil before.
To lather up when you go into the tanning bed?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I bought Vaseline for the first time in my life because my lips were getting
Oh,
Yeah.
chapped
Oh, you're
and
just
like
being
it's very
considerate.
it's very
Vaseline, very important to the Buffalo Bills.
great
Yes.
song.
So
Yeah.
last night they're showing McDermott's locker room speech, and I was fixated on the table of bananas, and there were just bottles of Vaseline
Do you know
for guys to put on their face before they go out. They tell you to wear Vaseline, in
Well,
the cold.
they do it for the cold. Like they
Mhm.
put it on their arms.
Mhm.
Like there are stories about how like, you go ahead, you put it on it, like it closes your pores. And so I think Booger McFarland talked about it.
I've seen the ice ball.
I've not, I don't usually, you don't see Vaseline sitting next to a table full of bananas. But to each their own. That's why the Bills are in the AFC Championship.
I smell what you're cooking.
We walked right into that.
We all celebrate
Um,
differently.
Jacob Bigelow will not be joining us. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Jacob had had something that came up, so he will not be with us. So we will not be able to ask him 8 weeks from today when we're all looking over a bracket. How many in-state teams will be in that bracket? 8 weeks from today. Red, blue, and black Nebraska.
So
8 weeks from today, we'll have a bracket.
the line a week ago, because like 1.5, if you said 1.5, you could confidently say a week ago
Mhm.
over.
Mhm.
So 2.5 was the interesting conversation. Could Creighton right the ship? Could Nebraska get back on track? And is Omaha going to be able to put together a magical run to make the NCAA tournament? That was kind of the question. And you could be like, those three things definitely could happen. I think a week later, we're now back at, no, I think 1.5 is an accurate line. Like we're back to,
Mhm.
like, can Nebraska do it? It's really coming down to the Huskers at this point because it's no longer just righting the ship. It's like turning the season around. 4 in a row. 1 really, really bad loss. 2 very close losses. 3 very close losses.
So if by chance all 3 made the NCAA tournament at the same time, and we've had other sports that have done it, volleyball and baseball most recently, it would be one of the craziest weeks around here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't be here, so we know that.
No. Well, and
Be
this year,
busy.
so last year we were speculating if Omaha made the NCAA tournament, they get sent to Omaha. And be like, oh, okay.
You've
Bracket
seen there.
matrix this morning. So this is actually this is not updated from the weekend, or actually is not updated from yesterday. Bracket matrix has Nebraska as the third 10 seed. They have Creighton as the first 11 seed. They have Omaha as the second 16 seed. That's bracket matrix. Does not include yesterday's results, but that is right now. Again, 8 weeks from today, we'll have a bracket. Bracket matrix has all 3 Division I programs in the NCAA tournament. It would be one of the best weeks.
You imagine if you drew Cooper Flag, you call his last college game.
Jimmy,
Attaboy, Jimmy.
Jimmy, I'd just like to be 6-0 Thursday night against St. Thomas.
So, a couple of things here. First
Spoken
off,
like a true coach.
last year, South Dakota State was the winner of the Summit League. They were the 15 seed.
Mm-hmm.
So that very well is in play for Omaha, that they can end up being something other than the 16 seed. Or do you think they didn't do well enough in the non-con to warrant that?
Well, it depends on what the conference record is, but more
Yeah.
than likely they're going to be a 16 seed playing in Dayton,
Okay.
and they'll win a game, which will be an NCAA victory and
They will
money,
be.
and they'll go on and they'll play Auburn.
So, next question here, and you can.
And on the other side of the bracket will be Nebraska and Clemson.
Not
Gator Bowl rematch.
Not even a question, just a statement. You can tell Crutch this, but I'm taking partial. I'm taking partial credit for Omaha's success.
This should go
2 weeks ago, you had no idea who Omaha basketball was.
Since I've arrived in Omaha on the Big O, and I've been a watcher and follower and talker about Omaha basketball. They haven't lost a Summit League game, so. I'm just saying.
But also on your ledger is the worst loss of the season while you were living in Omaha.
Coincidence? What loss?
Iowa State.
No, I was in Lincoln.
No, you were working here, right?
I was in Lincoln.
You were working.
I said since I've moved to Omaha, they haven't lost in the Summit League.
Oh, I see.
I've taken 12% of the credit. An argument could
always
be made
loopholes
for 16. Taking 12%.
Bracket Matrix has all three teams in 8 weeks from
It's incredible.
today.
It's absolutely incredible. It would be a hell of an accomplishment, not only just for Omaha and Nebraska and Creighton for making the tournaments, but also it'd be a great accomplishment for the state. The fact that the state would have 3 collegiate athletic programs making the NCAA tournament is not an easy thing to do. It is a difficult task to accomplish, and which is why there are programs who went years and years and years in the Power 5 who didn't make a tournament, let alone still teams that haven't won a game in the NCAA tournament. It'd be a great accomplishment for the state of Nebraska to have those 3 teams representing.
One of the teams in Bracket Matrix that is a 7 seed is West Virginia. Did you guys see what West Virginia did over the weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Both you and I have intimate relationships with the arena that the Mountaineers play in.
Indeed. Shout out.
West Virginia beat Iowa State.
Yes, I did see that.
They limited Iowa State. So this is the scenario, and I'm talking to you, Iowa fan, who Iowa got blasted by Mick Cronin and UCLA Friday night. Makes that Iowa game in Iowa City 2 Tuesdays ago sting even a little bit more because Iowa now is riding the roller coaster. They blow out Indiana, then they lose to USC. Now they've lost to UCLA. I think they have Wisconsin tonight. Check the schedule. I think Iowa and Wisconsin play tonight. But with that said, there's a lot of people that are not happy with what's going on over in Iowa City. I would be irate if you went back and looked at your Iowa football quarterback room in 2023, but that's beside the point. You should do that as a experiment.
What?
Look at the Iowa quarterback room in 2023.
Okay. Rutgers, Penn State tonight.
Okay.
Wow.
And then
is Iowa, Wisconsin tomorrow?
No, Wisconsin plays UCLA tomorrow.
Who is Iowa playing?
Iowa is playing, I have it right here. They play Minnesota at home.
Tonight.
No.
Tomorrow?
No, tomorrow.
Okay.
Tuesday.
You had the right idea. A cold state.
I had the right team.
Tomorrow's a big day in the Big Ten. There's 4 different Big Ten games going from 6:30 to 10 o'clock.
Are you ready, though, for the connection between West Virginia and Iowa that needs to probably happen sooner than later so you don't miss out?
Sure.
So Darren DeVries, this is, by the way, beat Iowa State without his son. They're winning. They won at KU without his son.
It's incredible.
We'll see how much money Iowa has and what they care about basketball, because if I'm Iowa, I would have to have 2 buyouts and a new contract to make sure that Darren DeVries comes back home to the state of Iowa and coaches Iowa before somebody else scoops him up. And people will think, well, is he the heir apparent to Mac? We don't know because we don't know who would be hiring the heir apparent to Mac.
Yeah.
It would make perfect sense, but the Iowa job, better than the Creighton job from this standpoint. Not history.
No.
Not history, tradition, and success, but the Big Ten compared to the Big East.
Absolutely. You'd rather coach in that conference than the Big East, for sure.
You got an athletic director at Iowa. And remember, I've already said that I think this is Kirk's last year. He will get enough that he can get into the College Football Hall of Fame with the win percentage.
Yeah.
You've got an athletic director who has been sitting there that a lot of people like, that hasn't made a statement yet, a statement hire. Men's basketball, they need to win in men's basketball. Men's basketball makes money. But wrestling and women's basketball are having more success than men's basketball on a consistent basis. is Darren DeVries. Brother played at Iowa. Darren is from Iowa. I'm just going to say this. The guy can coach. If I'm Iowa and I'm looking at what D-Rock has done in a short amount of time, in his first year at West Virginia, but I know what he did at Drake and I know what he did as an assistant at Creighton, I'm looking at what my finances are, because you'd have 2 buyouts and a contract, and D-Rock's buyout at West Virginia is not that high. That makes perfect sense, right? That Darren DeVries would be the next basketball coach at Iowa?
Absolutely. I think it makes a ton of sense. I mean, a graduate of Northern Iowa, and then goes over to Creighton, longtime Creighton assistant coach, a guy who, look, I think like the standard, I would much rather in any sort of sport hire a guy who's had a ton of success in a lower division as a head coach than hire a guy who's just this fancy assistant. You know what I'm saying? So like for him to go to Drake and for them to win the way that they did at Drake, and then now he goes to West Virginia, and not only is he just having success, but he's like beating top teams.
All right, here's one for you. Would you have him on a list to replace Self when he retires? Has he earned that credit? I mean,
D-Rock can coach basketball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think he went to West Virginia just to prove that he could win at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's the middle of January, but he already has been a winner.
Mm-hmm.
He's now gone to a place where his son Tucker, who's an NBA guy, is not playing due to an injury. And they have won in Lawrence, and they handcuffed Iowa State more than anybody I've seen all season long.
But
that would be like,
I mean, right now,
everybody's got a list. That's a curious one about KU. Because
I thought of that after they beat him. I was going to ask you.
Bill Self, it's not like I think we're looking at Bill Self has 5 to 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
You got an athletic director who's pretty aggressive, Northwestern guy.
You see his volleyball.
So
hire.
I was going to bring that up, but I didn't want it to turn into like you rolling your eyes at me about Northwestern. But like Chris Collins.
They got beat yesterday by Michigan.
We'll get it sponsored. It's okay.
It was overtime. Brooks Barnheiser has got to make those. All right, I'm not going to get into it.
Save it for Purple Wildcat call-in show.
Chris Collins
Big
is always going to
reaction.
be. I mean, at this point, like it's a little bit with Fitzgerald. Like those guys, both collectively, are always going to be on the short list of every single team who is firing and looking to hire a new head coach because of the amount of success that they had at a terrible program before they took it over. It's just whether or not, like, do you want to have job security, right? And like that's, I mean, you have unlimited job security at Northwestern if you're Chris Collins, but it's a legitimate conversation that you had with DeVries. I mean, look, it's a great turnaround. They're 13-4. They've beaten legitimate teams. Iowa State, at least for me, and I think you were on the same boat too, because you watched them in person. I've watched them now a couple of times on the TV. I mean, they're my tournament team, or they're my national champion. They still are my national champion with just how big and athletic they are, but also they play great defense and they're really well coached. It's a hell of a win. I think the more interesting conversation with the Big Ten though isn't necessarily what I was going to do. It's what Indiana's going to do, because you got to think that Woodson's gone. And there's a coach who's having a lot of success right now in his very first year of coaching, who's in the Big Ten, who does have an Indiana connection, and that's Dusty May. You got to wonder, with the boosters that Indiana has, and with the amount of money that they were, willing to buy out Archie, and the amount of money they're willing to give Woodson, and the fact that they're a team that, or just a school in general, where they want to win at basketball because basketball's in their blood and that's their sport. You wonder if they are willing to go and make a big move to go and get May, which they probably should have done getting him from FAU.
Oh, no, he wouldn't leave Michigan to go to Indiana.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
No.
You think that ship has sailed?
No, Indiana missed the boat.
Indiana missed that one.
They missed it.
Indiana, a phone call to Brad Stevens, and then I'd call Starkville, Mississippi, and see if Chris Jans is interested.
I like Chris Jans. I know him.
Brad Stevens. That's a name in basketball we haven't said a whole lot about, but he's been a shadow Theo Epstein.
I mean, he may be comfortable in the NBA and now pulling the strings for the Celtics, but you never know. Maybe a guy wants to get back into it.
I mean, he'd be on my list with Self.
Brad Stevens?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think Brad Stevens is going to coach basketball one day.
I agree.
He's going to coach again.
Money talks.
He will absolutely coach basketball again. I think he just needed to take a break from the the just losing and coming, being bridesmaid and never the bride, and the grind of an 82
Thing about
game
college
season.
basketball, I said this last week as Indiana's going through it, and now Indiana won on Friday night. Woodson, put a life preserver around his neck.
For now.
In college basketball, at a place like Indiana, you can turn things around quickly.
Absolutely.
You hire the right coach. You got to make the right hire. I look in the NFL. Like, I'm happy for the Commander fans because they went from despair to jubilation. Now, it starts at the top. You got to have good ownership.
Yep.
You have to have good ownership. And then ownership makes the right hire at the GM, and then it just
I'm out.
It trickles on down, and then you make the right GM hire, you make the right head coaching hire, you make the right pick and drafting and free agency, and the next thing you know, look at the Commanders. How quickly they turned it around. They went, and remember, Dan Quinn was the last guy hired in the cycle this past year. He was the 8th coach of the 8 that were hired. So, but the NFL, it starts at the ownership. You got to have good ownership, and then it trickles down. But in college basketball, look, one good hire. Look at Louisville. Have you checked out Louisville? Louisville has completely turned things around. They made a really good hire in Pat, and they had a lot of money to spend. We know that Indiana has money to spend. They got the right players. They spent the right money.
Chucky's.
And Louisville now, in a bad league, is playing really, really well.
They're 7-1. I mean, what do you want?
And you had looked at Louisville in the past with Kenny Payne, and you thought, man, that program's on life support. That program is so bad, they're going to bring back Papa John's.
Ha!
Well, everyone's being uncanceled now. So.
Well, Kansas State did it 2 years ago where they brought in a guy and, they were a terrible team. They end up making the tournament.
But ironically, look at 2 programs, actually 3, that spent a gob of money in the offseason. Indiana, Kansas State, Arkansas. Now, I think Calipari hid behind the Kentucky brand for a while.
The last couple
now
years,
he's getting exposed at Arkansas.
The last couple of years at Kentucky were not fun. They were not pretty. And it's not like they weren't bringing in talent. They had plenty of talent to use. They were consistently a team in the NCAA tournament that when you were filling out your bracket, you're like, well, it's Kentucky. And then they end up losing. I mean, you lose to Oakland, last year. And Reed Shepherd, who is, one of the better shooters that I've seen in college basketball. And you have this just fast, athletic team. And what do they do? I mean, they were people's picks, underdog, like, hey, this is finally Kentucky's year to get back on track. They had a lot of people putting them in the national championship and end up losing the first round. I mean, it was not I don't know.
I thought that was Gary Busey.
We could only be so lucky.
Into the Capitol.
Want you to meet my chief of staff.
Okay. All right.
Please let it be Gary Busey.
I think Gary Busey's he's struggling a little bit. But that looked like either Gary Busey or remember the British prime minister that kind of flamed out and he had the same kind of hair?
Boris?
Yeah, that might be him.
Oh.
Okay, continue on. Now,
you're
hooked on this. Now we got to switch to sports because
here's my thing. Like with college basketball, and it's just so fascinating
can't Stephen A.
like
that?
People talk about coaches, like how much does a coach matter in terms of from sport to sport?
Mm-hmm.
So you make an argument that like baseball is probably the least impactful in terms of coaches, but you need to still have a good culture builder, someone who, when they are going to make the moves, they make the right moves. There's been a lot of arguments that like football, man, that's probably the most important. You got to galvanize, you got to get all the guys together. You got to motivate them. You got to be the leader of men. You have to be also very smart though to do it as well. You have to have the mixture. You look at hockey. Hockey's weird because hockey's a weird talent gap in the fact that like you don't need to have all that talent, but if you play in a certain way, you'll win. College basketball though, with how the game still is, because I think that like with the NBA coaches, they don't get as much credit because it's just such talented rosters that they're dealing with. And you can make all these systems or whatever, but at the end of the day, if Steph Curry just makes the shot, like what coaching is Steve Kerr really doing, right?
Put some respect on Doug Christie.
We're
lighting the beam, baby, in Sacktown again.
You really watch McDermott. You watch Greg coach. You watch, the coaches that I'm consistently watching: Fred, Chris Collins, McDermott, Dan Hurley. Like they are actively coaching on the sidelines. They are actively calling these plays. You see Greg telling him, "No, Mason, you got to go here." They're direct. They're telling these guys where to go. They're putting them in the best situations. It's incredible to me that when you're that a sport like that can be that hands-on with coaching, yet the turnaround could be incredibly quickly, right? Look at what Chris Holtman's doing in DePaul right now. Now, they're not lighting the world on fire. They're 10-9, right? But like from where they were this year to where they were last year, I know they've only won one Big East game, but the fact that they're even on an upward trajectory after what has been a terrible, awful, no good, disgusting 15 years of basketball, like you just bring in DePaul won a Big East game. That's a rare sentence. That's a rare sentence. That does not happen a lot.
Bring back the Myers. You calling your shot for tomorrow night on Creighton's home game in Chicago?
No, I haven't. I got to go to a DePaul game. Like I haven't been to a DePaul game when they were at the Wind
It's
Trust.
convenient, man. Go and you can stay in the hotel and you just walk into the arena.
CBS Sports
You can
Network
have,
special.
you can have your own section there. And if you go see Creighton play there, you know what? You're going to go, oh my God, this looks like a Creighton home game.
How's the Lexus Club at the Chi?
Rich.
Is that worth it?
The chai?
The Chai?
The chai?
The Chai?
Don't be
Chai
too
latte?
shy.
You like a chai latte, Gary
you,
Sharp?
Did you not sit in the Lexus Club?
No, I was not given Lexus Club tickets.
Ooh.
That's surprising. You're new here.
I got
Usually you get that
hampered.
treatment.
I got hamstrung.
There are mahogany chairs.
Oh, leather bound books.
Warm.
There is 4K TV.
Is there jazz flute?
They massage you.
There's a lot of influential people.
Ooh, little networking opportunity.
Billy
Yeah.
gives you a foot rub.
What? Billy
Yeah.
does what?
Billy the Blue Jay just gives you a nice massage.
Did you ever get a foot rub before?
I don't like people touching my feet.
I got a full body massage in Florida in 2017.
So did
And
Robert Kraft.
on the side of the road, or
No, in a Marco Island resort. And it was awesome.
Strip mall just outside Ocala.
No. It was a Marco
You gotta be
Island
careful.
resort.
Marco Island, they ain't in the business of strip malls there.
No. That's
That's south. That's
pristine
south of where I live.
luxury.
Yeah.
I think about that massage maybe
All right,
twice.
we got to go to break. Again, we'll try and reconnect with. I don't want you to go into whatever you're doing. Okay.
It was funny.
And then when he dug his thumbs into my back,
ASMR.
I burst apart just like Devin Hester in the Super Bowl.
Oh
with a
my God! What a
return.
low blow.
Baby oil,
Hanging fruit.
baby oil discussion coming up next.
Wake up in the morning feeling like
If you want to feel like P. Diddy, go ahead, but I believe
I
that
don't.
might be illegal.
I don't like handcuffs.
Whoa.
But Kesha's song, I think she might want to. I think she's redoing it, but
I
they played
guarantee
the
you-
original.
Dude, I'll tell you right
Wake
now.
up in the
If she
morning feeling
redid
like
it,
P.
she
Diddy.
literally just redid that one line and re-released the song. The thing would become so popular again because that's nostalgia now.
I bet you'd find it on TikTok.
TikTok.
You'll find us next after the break. 1620 The Zone.
You're not going to wake up feeling like that. But you know what? On Friday, you can wake up and join the Connor Happer Show. And on Sportsmanlike Conduct on the road for the annual Pink Out broadcast, though we hope you'll wake up and join us first. January 24th, that's Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Stop by and donate for the paper supply drive to help raise awareness and support for the Hope Lodge Omaha. It's a great cause. It's a great day for us. And while you're doing that, join the VIP club. Sign up for 1620 the email. You'll be the first to know all the exciting content that's happening on 1620 The Zone, even before we know, including sports news, contest promotions, and more. You can sign up today at 1620thezone.com. Sing along.
Terry writes in, Friday is a huge day on the radio station. We'll be over at Hope Lodge. And then, of course, the Pink Out men and women playing down at the Shy.
The Shy.
You call it the Shy?
I call it the Shy now.
The Shy.
I do what I'm told.
The Chai.
As in,
It's called the Chai.
The Chai.
The Chai.
The Chai.
The Chai.
The Chai.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Chai.
Not the Shy. It's the Chai.
Welcome to the latte.
you don't go eat Chinese food. You eat
Yeah,
Chinese food.
exactly.
The Chai.
You don't go to Starbucks and say, I'd like a Shy.
Let me get a Shy latte.
And then the barista goes, oh, you're not shy. Everyone is welcome here. Terry writes in about baby oil.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, guys. Hi, Terry.
Love Terry.
As you age, the family jewels are more susceptible to dry winter air. Got to keep them supple, and baby oil is the way to go.
There you go, Matt.
Is that true?
I mean,
I grew up in a warm climate, so I have to sit this
I
one
thought it
out.
was baby powder for that, or is that for chafing?
It's for chafing, yes.
For chafing.
When you go to the Chai,
The Chai.
you're going to chafe at the Chai?
Chafe at the Chai.
On Friday, we'll have Mike
Schaefer.
Chafer.
There you go. I was leaning up for that joke. That was the joke we were leaning into.
I do not know that history, so I don't know what you do there. Mine are supple. Email. 8 weeks from today, we will have a bracket.
Yeah.
Good friend Joey says, I still think all three can make it. Nebraska and Creighton, I feel, have issues they can control with just better play, making smarter decisions, shot selection, and turnovers, all correctable. Omaha is better than folks think.
Yeah.
I've seen Omaha. Now, Joey has seen us play. Seen us play in person 3 times now, and I'm loving how hard they play on every position, both ends of the floor. Now, please, can the UNO community show them some love? Can I get into DJs and Exarban and they actually know Omaha's playing a game on a particular night? Just irritates me that Omaha basketball can be this good and still be an afterthought. Thursday night, 7:05, the 2 5-0 teams in the Summer League meet Omaha St. Thomas.
It is, and it should be.
Pack the
and,
backs.
and you and I, and because of your relationship with them, have done a great job talking about UNO and what they've been doing and how well they've been playing. It is and should be the biggest story in Nebraska sports right now. That they are 4-0 and that they're playing a massive game on Thursday. They're
Mr.
5-0.
Math.
They're 5-0. 5-0.
Give us some credit.
My bad.
One at Denver.
5-0.
Yeah.
They're playing the Tommies on Thursday at UNO at Baxter Arena.
That could have been good.
Yeah, dude, that was bad. That was almost a slip up there.
You would need some baby oil for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a new job.
They play where?
And a new job.
Here is Andrew.
Drew!
Good morning, Andrew.
Boys, it was a great weekend. It was a tremendous weekend.
Never forget November 22nd to carry on. Some
What
say
was,
January 6th. I say November 22nd.
What was,
Yeah, and I can't believe we lost to those guys. God.
Either can Trump.
yeah.
But-
Too easy. It's too easy.
But
No, that's a badum. That's a badum. Go ahead.
UNO was in the same place Creighton was when they were in the Valley. Or even probably worse. You're never going to get a lot of respect because
Yeah.
of the division. You're in.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And it's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Creighton, that Georgetown loss, when I called them out for their effort, I think they may have also got called out by their coach, and it has changed 360. I mean, it's been tremendous.
Yeah, they are battling, man. They won on Saturday. You know this, Drew. They won on Saturday, and it's not like Kalkbrenner and Ashworth burnt the place down with play. They were did other things that didn't show up as scoring. Because what they combined, they have 28 points combined? On
Something like that.
Yeah.
And Kalk didn't really shoot the ball well,
Yeah.
but his impact on the defensive end was incredible. And then, you had Trout and Jemiah Neal.
So think about this. So they're learning to play with each other at the beginning season with all the new pieces. Then they finally kind of figure it out, and they beat Kansas. Then the next game, the guy Pops, who was your star, is done for this season. So you kind of have to refigure it again. A tremendous job by Mac. I think they're trying to they're figuring out post Pop how to play together.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Nebraska basketball, thank you for keep on giving. You are wonderful people. I will say Ulyss, and I think I talked to you about this earlier, Sharp,
Yeah.
that he is their best option at point guard.
He is, but he needs to play like that.
Yeah.
And he may have for the first time all year played like a Big Ten point guard in Nebraska's system yesterday. So I would imagine his minutes will be
really good moment.
He's
a guy that can take it to the rim.
Yeah,
he ran the offense
anybody
too,
on that.
He ran it.
He did, but the thing about that position in this offense and on this particular team with the guys around him, they need that position to be really good night in and night out.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think his minutes will go up on Wednesday against USC.
I was at a family function last night. And I was talking to my brother, and I said, "So is this getting Fred Hoiberg on the hot seat?" He lives down in Lincoln,
mm-hmm.
And he said, "Nebraska ball has a problem. They don't know to love Fred Hoiberg or to not like Fred Hoiberg."
That's a good phrase.
I think there's how much time do you give Fred, I guess?
Yeah.
I said this earlier. Let's check back in 2 months to see where this season goes.
Do you think? See, and
he won't lose his job.
But
but it could be a warm seat come next year.
My point is he's always getting new people in there. He has a hard time building consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because he puts a new team together every year.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
Andrew, thanks for the call.
That's kind of the reason why, though, Fred does not have a winning record. Fred has a terrible record on the road in the Big Ten. If you're just looking at it on a piece of paper and you don't know anything about the program and what's happened, you could be like, "Oh, this hasn't gone well for Fred Hoiberg in Lincoln." But the reason why he's been able to keep his job and why there has been a lot of hope and momentum for this program is because he's changed the way that he has built his teams and how the style of play has been. And so it's always been contingent. His job at this point and his security has been contingent on, okay, the team is built a different way. The team plays a different way. He's got new assistant coaches. This is working. There has not really been a point in the last 2 years at this point that it hasn't been working, right? Ever since, Sam Hoiberg has come in and Casey took off and Bandamel and Gary went down, they've had a lot of success in the program. It's been a very good almost 2 years now for Nebraska basketball. There hasn't really been a ton of consistent lack of success since that moment. This is one of the very rare times in these last 2 years where there has been a massive stretch, a bad stretch of basketball. Last year, there were moments. There were bad losses sprinkled here and there. There were that Minnesota loss. That was a really bad loss on the road, right? The fact that they couldn't get it going overall on the road. They win a big game against Purdue, and then they go to Iowa City, and they get, they're just never in that game. They can't play defense against Iowa, right? There were moments of negativity, but there hasn't been this consistent failure from the program in the last 2 years. This is the first time we're experiencing it. And so maybe it is a little unfair to start talking about whether or not his seat's going to be warm.
Well,
but to be fair,
I told you earlier, and you were like, "Whoa, really?" That people yesterday were like, "Time to get rid of Fred." All right, the season's got 2 more months.
2 more months.
He's not on the hot seat. Let's see what happens with this season. Now, it would feel like a thud if they built themselves up in November and December and just dropped out of sight. Here's the one thing I've always disagreed with Fred. Fred's got to be able to develop high school guys.
I totally agree.
Okay? So he's got a really good high school player from Wisconsin, redshirting this year. They haven't developed high school kids. And the other thing that Fred, and this is his history, is he's more concerned about the top 7 on the roster than the bottom 5. Okay, he's always been that way. So the bottom 5 can fall off and they can go elsewhere. But boy, wouldn't you like to have guys that gave you different options last year that weren't your best players, but how good would a Wiltshire or a Lawrence look in the mix this year with these guys?
Well, you got to start thinking, too, of like, okay, so they got Ramel Lloyd And then he never panned out. So then he goes and he leaves, right? But then like Eli Rice was a dude from Florida who they recruited, who was young, who was putting in very quality minutes last year. But was he in that top 7? Was he in that rotation of dude? I mean, it was very hit or miss whether or not he was out on the floor. He leaves, right? And I'm not saying that these high school players like, oh my God, it's such a massive loss. Like they were going to be superstars. But you're right. Like you need to have a certain foundation. You can't just roll. Look, I don't think people realize that like Bryce and Rink panning out the way that they've panned out as like legitimate top options for a good team in a Power 5 conference. That doesn't happen a lot when you're poaching from the portal, right? For every guy like Rink and Bryce, there are other guys who other teams around the country pick off and try and get from non-Power 5 teams that don't end up panning out the way that they thought they would. They've been fortunate, but it's hard. I think their model, it's really hard to hit every single year on a transfer portal class. It's really difficult. Andrew brought it up. Every single year to bring in a new roster practically, have these guys learn to play a certain way, and then roll that into immediate results. It's a difficult thing. It works. It's been working, but it's hard to do.
Ramel Lloyd is at Long Beach State. He's played 10 games, averaging 4.7 points per game.
Well, that wasn't a Ramel Lloyd was a bad loss. It's just the fact that he was a high school guy they brought in. They weren't able to develop him. That's the point.
He had a good radio show, though, with his dad. I'm sure he got some money as well.
Sure, good for him.
I think I might have played more at Nebraska than he did.
No, I know. I'm not saying that he was a bad. You just pointed out that he wasn't able to develop high school players. Like he was a high school player that they had that they redshirted, and they weren't able to develop him into a product. It has nothing to do with him being a bad loss or not, or what his legacy was.
Well, I don't even think he was a. I don't think he was.
No,
a
loss at
no
all.
idea.
But the fact that they brought him in, they had him there, and he wasn't able to play. Like that's. I'm going on your point. That's a problem.
Here is Mike before the break. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good. Great.
I think with the NIL, I think in college basketball, I think the importance of having sound coaching is more important than ever. And your guys' discussion about Darian earlier and his win with West Virginia and where he's going, I've been kind of hoping for a while that he would do okay, but not really great until Coach Mack was ready to retire.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because he is the total package. And I think unlike Hoiberg, and I like Fred, I think Fred's a good guy, but I think in this day and age, you have to have a couple things. One, the ability to recruit quality kids and not rely on the portal. 2, to be able to develop kids. And then 3, to coach on the fly and adjust.
Yeah.
And I think what Creighton's had to do this year with the portal and all that, it's proven in injuries that if you have a coach that can take a loss like Georgetown and turn that around and develop your quality players that you have, which we've seen this year. I mean, Neal just stood out this weekend, and the other guys have stepped up. I see that with DeVries too, and that win over Iowa State was incredible. And what he said was this, and I thought it was very similar to Mac, is he said, don't set yourself any limits. You know, you play to your highest potential. And it's coaches like that that will find a way to win no matter where they're at. And I think it keeps the college game viable for smaller conferences like the Big East, because we're a Power 5 conference. I mean, not Power 5 conference, so we're up there. But for having the quality coaching makes you competitive.
Yeah.
And that's been proven time and time again. So my last point is just this is Hoiberg really does need to follow some of those examples. And I don't know if he's able to kind of develop that talent. And I think that's in the end going to bite him in the, you know what, because like Mac's been able to adjust, DeVries has been able to adjust. I just don't think Hoiberg's been able to do that. He's come up with some significant wins. Don't get me wrong. He's a winner, but the problem is he just never gets that right formula together.
Yep. Mike, thanks for the phone call. Develop a high school guy. I mean, that would, but also high school, or I would rather have it be high school, but I get in the portal world. Nebraska lacks, so they've lacked a true point guard, like a real point guard. And then they've lacked that one guy that can just take games over. Doesn't necessarily need to be a Harper or a Bailey.
Yeah.
But just takes games over. Like, is you game plan around them or away from them? They had a little bit of Casey, but he was a different kind of element. that one guy that is a dude for 40 minutes that people go, that's a problem, because that guy recruits other guys. Again, there's a long
great
season.
point.
Just see where this season goes. But I'm not as I took a little bit more of a positive look at yesterday against Maryland, because he's playing guys that play hard, not guys that, we got to have them on the floor. He almost said, I'm going to sacrifice what's going to happen here when we put a weird lineup on the floor because I'm taking over. This is what we're going to do. I'm following through what I said after the game on Thursday night. Now, those guys played well, and he got minutes from Ulis and Morgan together. And Ulis had what? Would you say 10 assists?
It was 10 assists.
Had he had more than 10 assists combined prior to last night?
I mean, yesterday was his most minutes since they played, I think, FIU or whatever, where he played 20. I mean, he played 27 minutes yesterday.
I mean, Fred's got to be careful to push the button, because now he's got Juwan Gary that's swimming in it. We don't know what's up with Bryce Williams. You got to get Bryce Williams more active. Is Essegian is something of the start? Like, this is like Wednesday night just becomes like, it seems like the season.
Sure.
Like the turning point in the season, because you're at home. You got USC. Both teams are kind of living on the bubble. Yeah. They have a better conference record than you. You now need to probably get, I've said the magic number is 10. That means you're 2-5. You do the math.
You got to go 8-5.
They got to find a way to win 8 games.
So a couple things here. Like, it's one thing for a coach to go to a podium or on a radio show and say, hey, I messed up. Hey, that was on me. But it's another thing for them to actually show that action on the floor. Right. I think when he started, like you said, playing these what we call weird lineups, right? But they were just lineups of people who were playing. It was an admission of, okay, maybe I didn't get this wrong the first time with these rotations, but I'm not going to allow my stubbornness and not allow myself to admit that I was wrong stop us from having progress from within the season. And so it's one thing to go on the podium and say, hey, guys, I messed up. It's another thing to do it on the floor. I commend him for that. I think where we're at the point in the Fred Hoiberg tenure is that he's trying to prove whether or not this system of getting guys in the portal and grabbing from JUCO and grabbing from non-Power 5 and developing these guys and putting together this defensive and bigger and tougher roster. He's trying to prove that last year wasn't a flash in the pan. Last year wasn't just, all the pieces came together and we just had a great season and we weren't able to win. He's trying to prove, no, this is a sustainable model that we can have at Nebraska, that can have Nebraska consistently in the NCAA tournament picture. I don't know if
he's got a roster right now and a philosophy that is the best for Fred Hoiberg and Nebraska. Is it the best to get to the upper echelon of the Big Ten? Remains to be seen. I don't think so.
I want to circle back around to your point. This system can consistently get you to 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds. But if you're going to be a 3 seed, a 4 seed, a 5 seed, if you're going to be actually competing for national championships, you got to develop high school talent. You got to find those guys and bring them up within your system.
All right, we'll take a quick break, come back, we'll put a wrap on this Monday show. That'll have Notre Dame and Ohio State playing tonight for the national championship. Very little buzz this weekend.
Yeah, not great for the sport, but it'll be a buzz tonight. I mean, 2 massive brands.
Huge brands.
Massive.
First year of the college football playoff.
Couldn't ask for
Is it the biggest college football game?
Ooh.
Because of the brands, and it's the first playoff?
Ooh, I like that.
We'll say goodbye after this on 1620 The Zone. All right, so after the performance by Jaden Daniels on Saturday night, and now every rookie quarterback is going to be held to that standard, fairly or unfairly. See, that's another one. The Giants had a chance to pick up Jaden Daniels, did not.
Yeah, that 13-year-old telling his dad, Joe Shane, it's a great dude. It was a great sentence by him. He was like, "You only get this job once." I mean, that was real talk right there.
How do they still keep their jobs after this weekend?
I don't get it. I don't understand.
But with the performance of Jaden Daniels, and speed kills, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Don't drive, Jacob.
Cliff Branch taught me that.
Jeez.
But in terms of NFL, playing in the NFL, speed is unbelievable, and he is so fast. I've updated my Daniels rankings.
Oh, okay.
I've got 4.
Yeah, give it to me.
Number 4 is Charlie.
Okay, Charlie Daniels.
We've had a change, though, between 2 and 3.
Okay.
Has Jeff been demoted?
He has. Jeff is number 3.
Damn.
Jaden is number 2.
It's fair.
Jack is number 1.
So where does former Iowa and Chicago Bears center James Daniels rank?
He is not in the top 10.
Not in the
can't
top
drink
10.
him.
I really only want to rank 4.
Okay.
And Jaden Daniels was a new addition when he came along and he started to move up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still behind Jack. I don't know that you can knock in your rankings of Daniels.
Yeah.
I don't know that Jack ever gets knocked off. I think it would take a Super Bowl as a rookie by Jaden for me to reconsider with the committee how I'm going to adjust my Daniels rankings.
And shout out Bill Daniels, who was Mr. Feeney.
I just think
Boy
with
Meets World.
Jack, it's like I didn't listen. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But
It's before your time.
With Jack, it's almost
No. Boy Meets World?
Boy Meets World?
Topanga. She was
Oh,
hot.
she's got it. All right.
Okay.
We're back.
Boom.
Jack is so multiple, though. You know, he can be a gentleman. He can be double-barreled.
Mm-hmm.
He can be oaked.
He's going to taste really good in my mouth here in about an hour.
He could. What do you mean an
Started
hour?
early.
You mean 10 minutes? I mean,
It's cold.
I'll go with you,
I
man.
don't got anything in the car. I got to get home.
I have a thing in the car.
That's not good.
I'm kidding.
Now you're going to get pulled over again.
I know, man. I can't believe it happened.
Shout out Chad the cop.
What are you gambling tonight on this game? I think I'm going straight to Warhorse, by the way, to cash out my bet and then place another one. Why? No, I am. That's how you.
Hey, we're not judging.
I have to go.
I'm rooting for you.
I like walking out of the casino with my tickets. There's something about it. There's something magical.
I'm going to be so sad when you crash and burn, and you're on the nightly news.
So until Mark Andrews dropping the 2-point conversion, I hadn't lost a bet since Penn State SMU.
You didn't like DM Mark Andrews or anything,
No,
did you?
I'm not a psycho.
Okay. Because people,
Yes.
they went to his Instagram and he is diabetic, and so
He's a good guy too.
But he should have showed up for the post game.
Saved a life. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't see that. I didn't know that happened. I mean, that's just not professional.
Scott Norwood did after the Super Bowl.
It's not professional. Not to do that. Scott, I know. What a game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy's going to show up. So, I don't know if I'm going to bet the spread though on this game. Do you like anything for tonight?
I think Ohio State covers.
Okay.
They win and cover.
I'm thinking maybe a Notre Dame team total under could be the play. I might just.
They'll score, right?
I just might.
Yeah.
Yes, Notre Dame will score.
Okay, we're good.
I might just bite.
Anytime touchdown would be love
For Jeremiah?
for Notre Dame. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, obviously. I don't know. I don't really want to parlay. This game is just so weird to me because I really don't think it's going to be a blowout. I do think that Ohio State will probably more than likely win by 10 points, but I don't think it'll be a blowout. Like, I think it'll be a competitive game. Like, I think it'll be actually pretty similar to Texas-Ohio State, where Texas was in it. You knew that Ohio State, for the most part, had control of the game and that they were probably going to end up victorious. But, like, it got weird for a second, and then Jack Sawyer made the play of the year, maybe the play of the 2020s in college football, honestly. I mean, Texas was on the 1-yard line with all the momentum in the world about to tie the game. And then big play by their defense to knock them back to the 6-yard line. And then not only does he strip the ball, but he goes all the way to the end zone and scores it for an offense that wasn't really clicking in the manner that they typically were heading into that game.
What did Lou Holtz took Notre Dame by like a gazillion?
Probably.
Why is Lou Holtz still relevant?
He thinks he's coaching the game tonight, actually.
I think he's still trying to do like backpedal with the whole. He doesn't think Ohio State is tough, and then Ryan Day called him out. I think that really bothered
He
him.
still thinks John.
And
then
it
he went
bothered
after him
Ryan
again.
Day way too much. I don't know why Ryan Day was so bothered by that. Just an old man who hasn't been relevant in the sport for
Feels like
15
Tony Rice
years.
needs to step between the two.
Nice.
If Notre Dame or Ohio State win a national championship tonight, which is guaranteed, one of them will, it'll be their third in the last 50 years. So Nebraska will be just like Ohio State and Notre Dame. Take that for you.
Spin zone.
Discuss amongst yourselves. No.
What are you, a teacher? Get in your groups. Get in your pods.
Enjoy the football tonight. It's the last college game of the year.
TikTok.
And then we got to go back to talking about stuff that has nothing to do with on the field.
Now we got to go back to lists.
CWS?
Lists.
4.5 months?
No, we're not going to do lists. Like the way too early
Yeah,
top 25s. You will find out the reporters that have a respect of Matt Rule. If Nebraska is 24-25 in polls, fresh off their Pinstripe Bowl.
We should keep a graph of that, like how many do and do not. Seriously, it'd be educational.
Andy Staples is a Matt Rule guy. He's got on 3 has him as 25. Let the preseason hype begin. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 for Jimmy. For Matt, I'm Garrett. Gary and Matt. Crossover's coming up next.